The mind does work. There are images, patterns, things to recollect. It's not just the long, deep sleep that comes when the fear has left. The cold is felt, the slipping away of feeling is noted and then succumbed to. The mind functions. Time is distorted, jumbled, telescoped, accordion, but there is a sense of time even so. And I remember things. I remember the way it began. I remember the way it was, and it was, and it was, and it was in the beginning.
Daddy, I think he's lost his mind. He's never been like this before. Tonight he was almost raving.
What did you say?
Oh, crazy things. That he's some kind of a spaceman and that they're taking over the Earth and that we're all going to die.
They told me to keep in mind the scientific and
Hey everybody, what's up? It's your buddy Michael O'Toole. I'm here for episode 112 of the Experimentally ILL podcast. It's August 11th, 2023. Check us out on experimentallyIll.com. And don't forget to subscribe to the podcast where I talk to artists, entertainers, and it's sort of where the counterculture meets the pop culture, and that's what we're going to talk about today. And check out updates on our upcoming television series, Experimentally ILL, produced out of CCTV Cambridge in Cambridge, Mass. That's going to be coming to you soon. And so we just came back from a big shoot over the weekend for Fan Expo Boston, which was formerly known as the Boston Comic-Con. So for guests today, I thought it'd be cool. We did sort of a casual post-mortem of that. I have our friend artist D.L. Polonsky, who was with me during the shoot, and I also have my good friend who's helping us produce the show and edit the show, Lawrence Hollie, is with me over the phone today. So should we talk about the Fan Expo and then I guess Comic-Cons in general? Or I know DL has some thoughts. We are recording now, so
yeah, I know. Yeah.
Yeah.
I did. It's not exactly my kind of thing.
That's right. You were interesting because I was sort of a comics fan, and even back in the early days of when I first was working with Lawrence at the Wellesley channel, and we kind of became friends talking about stuff like whether it's Star Wars or Spiderman or Back to the Future and that kind of stuff. And DL was always a rabid movie fan or DVD collector and stuff, but not so much into the superhero thing. So he kind of represented our contrasting voice during the convention coverage.
I'm not into it if it's not done with any new twist on it. If it's done conventionally and slick conventional, like the old vintage Superman and Spider-Man, then I'm not that interested in it.
Yeah.
If they do make it more reality based or do some kind of a radical twist on it.
Well, they have done things like that.
Or parody.
Did you see Christopher Nolan's Batman Begins and The Dark Knight and stuff like that? That was supposed to be more reality-based Batman.
Yeah, but that's not the bulk of what they do. The bulk of what they do is just straightforward action movies. So, but yeah, I think the whole thing is a big way to gouge hardworking people of their money, but also those people enjoy getting in costume and it appeals to people's egos. Otherwise, they wouldn't be spending all this time on standing in uncomfortable costumes if it didn't appeal to them to get attention from the costumes. I can't imagine those costumes are comfortable, and so I think it's good. It's just not my kind of thing mostly.
Yeah. Well, I think that's the contrast to that. I think it's just a matter of taste, and the people I interviewed in the footage. I interviewed some of the cosplayers and a guy who was dressed as a version of Batman and a guy who was Iron Man, and they were telling me all about it. They were using the 2D or 3D printers and stuff, that they're building these things at home, and there's this whole art to it too, and kind of a science to how the heck that even the printing even works. And
Guys, if I can interrupt, hey, brother,
Yes.
This is Lawrence Hollie. And I unfortunately was not there to hang with you guys for this event, but why don't we dial it back just a little bit, kind of give everyone an idea of, why did you guys go? I mean, I know you guys video recorded it, so let's give people a little bit of an idea of why that was done, what you were doing it for.
Yeah, some people don't know anything about what we're doing. So
Exactly. So what's the what's the premise? What's the purpose for going in the first place? How do we do that?
The premise was we like a few months back, DL and I had been talking almost every day about, and DL had made films in the past, and I kind of helped make films and stuff, and we had done it at public access stations, and so we were talking about which one was the better one to go to, and if we could get back. So we got back to CCTV in Cambridge, who made it really easy, and then I got the new iPhone that made it really easy to record some footage and stuff, and then Lawrence had offered to help us edit stuff, so we started a new TV series with the Experimentally ILL name. We did other projects with that name, but I figured, let's get some of those collective of people back. And then I always liked, Lawrence and I, we went to the different Comic-Cons. I think over the past 10 years, I think our friend, documentarian Rod Weber, remember he started taking Tiny the Terrible, his little person wrestler friend, and his custom action figures, and he actually got some of the celebrity guests to do voices for this stop motion movie. So we had kind of got media credentials for that, and we're helping him out, and we would just go, and I kept going, and I thought, wouldn't this be fun, or wouldn't this be more creative to kind of be part of the show, or help promote the show, and actually cover it and get footage and stuff. So then when I saw that it was coming around again, Boston Comic-Con became Fan Expo here a few years ago. I guess they were bought out or something, and the two big ones that come around in the New England area are the Fan Expo around August, and then there's the Rhode Island Comic-Con in November. So typically, right down to the wire, I applied for press passes through CCTV, and we got approved. And I'm like, okay, let's try to make an episode out of this, or make a special or a little documentary. And then we had Hartley Pleshaw, right, who's our newsman, our journalist character that we recorded some bits with on the show. And then we had DL, who would represent sort of the contrary point of view, and myself, who was kind of into it. And then and a couple of other people that I pulled together.
Represent the contrary point of view when the contrary point of view is appropriate, is what I think. It's
that's your personal.
It's not a knee-jerk contrarianism.
That's right. And then I was I wanted to get sort of a backup videographer guy, and so it was the first. The story within the story is kind of us getting out of our comfort zone and trying to expand these things, or get out into the bigger world and try to network when we're a little more introverted guys sometimes, insulary sometimes, and so I went on one of the New England Filmmaker Facebook pages and put an ad for another videographer, and so we got this kid who was fresh out of college, Alicio, who offered to do video. Yeah. So it was pulling this crew together, and the story and the footage is, DL was kind of anxious about various things. I don't know if you want to talk about that, and so I was just it was me trying to keep the faith and trying to pull these guys together, and it was hard to. It's hard to schedule something when you have sort of self-doubt and you're not sure if this volunteer crew is going to show up or not, or what their motivations are, and it was or not. And so it's me trying to I guess Lawrence and I were talking about, it was kind of the hippie approach where I assumed people would kind of know what to do, and it was a challenge too, because that experience at the convention, it's being able to ask for what I want, whether it's from my crew or a guest I want to interview. And kind of being able to assert what I want can be challenging sometimes. And a convention, I think, for everybody, even people who are into it, I mean, there's all kinds of things online, con survival guides and stuff. Even people who are super into it, it's a lot of work, whether it's planning or it's a lot of energy, walking around, and you are in lines and you're braving the crowd. And our first day we went there was on Saturday, and it was almost a prohibitive crowd sometimes, and that's if I was to do it again next year, I would push myself to go on Friday because I always need like a day to get a feel for the floor. Anybody who's been to conventions, I mean, you have you have like the main floor where there's all the vendors and there's Artist Alley and there's like the celebrities and then there's the panels. So when there's a big crowd, sometimes I can't even find parts of the floor until like later on. So,
yeah, I'm surprised it was organized this well, even though it was a mess in certain areas.
And it's usually like credit to the Fan Expo. It's like I mean, a lot of times with those people, like the yellow shirts where you can ask the crew, I think those are like volunteers, and so And I was looking for the panel schedule because I like to get some more because the panels are free, where like guests and things will speak about their projects and stuff. And I know,
we didn't get it.
I think John McGinnis, who's one of the camera guys, grabbed like some of the Jason Lee panel. But yeah, it was just you have a hard enough time like actually finding the stuff. So trying to like plan what to get. I mean, my vague plan was like what I said, sort of like documenting it and sort of like maybe like DL as sort of like the fish out of water or that contrasting viewpoint. And then I did say to the camera guys, hey, we're going to grab some B-roll because that's kind of fun to like set the scene of a convention. I do like conventions, but I also do feel like once you've been to one, you've kind of been to them all. They're generally like set up the same way and have like similar things.
Fish out of water is putting me sort of into a stereotype.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, a lot of the times I am very critical, but maybe sometimes there's a reason to be. I'm criticizing. I'm criticizing
and there
a small bottle of like Poland water costs $5.
Yeah.
I mean.
Well, I think at a lot of those shows, I think it's really expensive to rent the convention center, and I think they always kind of gouge you in concessions and things, which you are kind of allowed to bring like snacks and stuff. They didn't really, so that's what I always say. It's like you're going on a hike. Like try to bring water, try to bring like I brought like Cliff Bars and stuff. DL always thinks I only like Cliff Bars now because Henry Rollins mentioned them in a monologue at one time.
Joking.
So,
I hate Cliff Bars. They have a horrible aftertaste.
But it's just a lot of like playing.
It doesn't matter.
And when you get nervous and you may or may not have like ADD or not, it's like hard to focus on all those. You're focusing on the crew, and then I was kind of like in a producer director like position where sometimes people had questions, or maybe they didn't even really have questions, and they just kind of wandered off, and like I guess they assumed they knew what I wanted, or I assumed they would know, or I assumed at some point we're gonna like get together, and then people would just sort of like get lost or get separated from one another in the convention
maybe you were
center.
overly optimistic.
So, yeah, I think sometimes that's my naivete. So I did learn a lot.
Very well put, Mike.
Mm-hmm.
So if I can just put that into a capsule as best as I can. So multiple things going on. Part of it was to get the convention experience, have fun, at least try to.
Mm-hmm.
While the other end of all this was you're getting footage for one of the episodes of your new public
you should explain that more.
Yeah.
It's an interview show.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then the other thing is also all the while you're attending it and trying to enjoy it and get the footage, you're also combating, if you want, maybe combating is too harsh a word, but you're also dealing with
anxiety, physical fatigue.
Learning how to slot into the leadership role. Defining what your purpose is there and holding to the purpose and trying to keep everybody on track, which can always be a bit of a challenge.
Yeah.
Is that on point?
Yeah, that's true. And even when you're just going as a fan, it's impossible to do everything that a convention offers. Like, you have to pick and choose. So I think it's always a challenge.
Don't beat yourself up. This is the first time you've done that.
No, I still think we got some good footage, and it was fun, and, I learned a lot, and,
We did with the best with the limitations. Like they didn't want you to talk too much to the fans or bother them too much. And with the children, you don't even know if you have permission from the parents to interview them. So
it is interesting, I will say, in this day and age where everyone has a camera, on their phone and whatnot, and sort of like still trying to like jurisdict the media passes and media credentials and who constitutes media and stuff. And it's like
He's smacking you with parameters.
Yeah, and the rules, and it is really interesting when it's an open floor, or as Jamie Branson would say, it's a public street. It's a public street, so it's a public floor.
Yep.
And say you're a documentarian and you're just documenting the floor. It's like, well, when you have the bigger like celebrities come in, they kind of try to. I think what happens is the convention pays the appearance fee, which I imagine is a big fee. And then I don't even know, maybe some get some percentage, but I think more like the autograph fees or photo fees are like, it's the convention trying to recoup the money they spent to bring in the celebrity, because they know it gets more mainstream people to come in and buy tickets to the main show. You know what I mean? It's like you buy tickets to the main show, and then there's all these individual, sales going on once you're in. So it is funny. If they see you like walking the celebrity row or whatever, and they see you with your phone out or whatever, I was just walking by that Stephen Amell, the guy who plays Arrow on the Arrow show and stuff, and sometimes they'll have somebody like out in front of their line or something, and they kind of give you a stop, motion with their hand, like you're not supposed to be. They don't want you to be filming like candid stuff of them because they're monetizing the still photos usually. And even John McGinnis, one of our camera guys, he was proud of himself. Like, he got footage of, like, William Shatner was there, and some of the other, like, I think Henry Winkler was there, like, some of the bigger guys. And he got
footage of them.
He was able to, he got Shatner walking by. He told me, I have to look at it. So he told me, like, he went down the celebrity row, or the celebrity zoo, as Red Letter Media said, and then he said originally one of the crew, like volunteers, told him to stop, like no filming. And then he had to invoke, he showed his pass and said, I'm press. And then they let him do it. So it's just like, it is sort of invoking that. And they do say we have a limited number of passes for internet only people. So, it's like so many things are online and streaming now. It's like, okay, well, now we have a TV show. It did say local TV is allowed.
Let me interrupt there, there. So, kind of going back to what DL was getting at earlier is, what is the show? So, for the audience who has no idea, what is this TV show?
Yeah, we're just at the very beginning. We're just at the very beginning of the first episode, or the first of this thing.
That's right.
It sounds like if you say that and they don't know us, it sounds like we've had a TV show for a couple of years or several months or something.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, we're trying to do a show that's very free for. You tell them.
Yeah.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Well, I'd say it's more. I'd say it's kind of leaning towards like this arts and entertainment thing that kind of has like various video sketches and things. We've been kind of surreal, like sketches and. Right now, it's sort of a compilation of different videos, like some short films that we had, in the archive. Because it's kind of like, I think it's kind of combining what we did with the Experimentally ILL Film Festival, like showing short films of friends and stuff, and then also a little bit like the podcast, in that we have some talking segments or interview segments, but it's sort of like a montage of those things. And I know Lawrence is editing it and likes that's kind of like the Tim and Eric sort of Adult Swim style editing. So we've been shooting a lot of stuff on green screen. We had us flying like our own superheroes on green screen, where you just we laid across a chair with the green sheet on us, and then and it was myself and DL like flying around. And then we had our heads kind of floating around, and I know Lawrence put some psychedelic stuff in the background. And those are interstitial little things. And then at least that first episode, I was kind of hosting it, and it's a little bit like having like surreal kind of comedy sketches and some editorial like talking things, interviewing some local artists, and then also a little bit like surreal like documentary, which I imagine what the convention footage will be like. I just did like Lawrence was saying, let's get you in front of the green screen. So I also got a green screen at my apartment, and I just sort of did a monologue about just talking about some of our history in the New England media and stuff. And so it has a montage of some of the press that we got for the festival.
I think you wanted it to be more of an arts and entertainment show than I do. I want to do like more scripted, like vignettes with characters.
Yeah, I think we're leaning towards.
Let me finish this.
Okay.
But please.
Okay.
But that's a lot more work, and I don't think I'm up to it. Possibly right now. So I think if I don't have any better idea, it's good enough to do an arts and entertainment thing right now. So I think it's not my favorite choice of how to do the show, but I think it's more realistic right now. Mm-hmm. So and I'm not against it or anything. I just would rather do little skits. I just don't think I can deal with it now, and I'm not blaming you. But maybe I can. Maybe I could gradually do little short films or something. Yeah.
I think that's like what we're both like leaning towards. Like I just signed up for another screenwriting revisions class at Grub Street, the Creative Writing Center. I took a bunch of classes there last year, so maybe it'll get me to motivate to write like shorter things, and maybe it will be more of like a kind of a sketch show. I know other people want to act and stuff too.
Yeah. Now, Mike, is this, again, for the, like, pretending the audience is coming at this from ground zero, right?
Yeah.
So does this show, I'm me being the newbie audience member, just pretend.
Yeah.
I'm assuming that this show idea of yours didn't just erupt out of whole cloth one day. It was there. Did you have anything before it? Did you do a show before of a similar nature, or what's the what was the impetus for this? Is this the outgrowth of a previous project? Was this a collaboration between you and DL? What's going on?
Right. Well, I know DL hates this kind of stuff. To go back to the old stuff, but
that's kind of a loaded thing, Mike. I'm asking about the origin.
Wait till you tell me.
That's
maybe
right.
You're right. What was you saying?
Well, yeah, I think
I don't like these formula shows that have like arts and entertainment where they interview. Yeah. I want it to be on. You're always using the word weird. I want it to be more unconventional than that.
Right. I guess just in terms of selling it to like an audience or somebody who like doesn't know, like you can't. It's sort of. I guess that's the irony. I know it's like semantics, but like if you say unconventional freeform, the first thing people are going to say is like, what do you mean? Like, what is it? So you have to compare it to something that's already known. But I think that is a good point, though. I think the whole public access mentality is it's a good way to have like a general outlet for now for some of the shorter, sort of surreal like videos we were making, and to be able to say like you have a TV outlet. And it did really help us to have the support of CCTV with some equipment and, help us with those credentials to cover the convention too. So, but I think for right now, it's sort of in the style of, we've been doing the podcast for years, and that was just sort of conversation stuff. And I did want people to know more of my artist friends, like stories and stuff.
Since you're using the name Experimentally Ill, you should say mention how that it was used for like a film festivals like 10 years ago.
Yeah, I think I did.
And now we're trying to make like I hate the word variety show. It sounds like those shows like Carol Burnett or the old 70s.
For now, it's like a.
But I don't know what else to call it. Variety. We're trying to do a variety show instead of a film festival type thing.
Yeah, so it's kind of like a video
precursor to experimentally. What's this precursor to experimentally ill that I hear about called solipsis? What's solipsis?
Yeah, that's right. No one could say it because it was like an after hours thing that you and I.
What is this solipsis dispatch, Mike, that I've heard so much about? That won an award.
That was a very off the cuff monologue show that I was conned. It's a trademark phrase that I was conned into doing it by Lawrence Hollie. You'll actually, for any historians, if you look back on archive.org or maybe on YouTube, you'll find various footage of our younger selves where when we're asked on camera why we're on it, they say Lawrence. Lawrence.
That's vague. That's vague, and we're going into that.
Yeah. Solipsis Dispatch was a monologue show.
What was Solipsis Dispatch? Did you host it? I've heard about it.
Yes.
Doing it. What is it?
I was the host where I would prattle on about various topics, and a couple of times it was the subject of like the studio class that you would run. So it was a way to provide like students to learn how to produce TV and stuff too. But it was sort of just like an off the cuff thing to get myself going, get more comfortable on camera. And, you know, one episode I might talk about the nostalgia of like wanting to go to the video store and my video store closing. Or I think one time I talked about a lot of going from that to heavier stuff, talking about like a lot of the suicides that happened with the high school kids in my town and stuff. And it just sort of off the cuff, like monologues and stuff like that. And we had the kind of surreal like green screen background in there, and I cut together a reel of some of the highlights of that, and we submitted it to the Alliance for Community Media Northeast region, and we got an award from that. We actually got a second place award.
Some effects with your head when you were on there. You had
I had three heads.
Max headroom or something.
Yeah, we had the Max Headroom stuttery edits, and then at one point I happened to be wearing a green Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles t-shirt, so Lawrence was able to key out my body, and we had like my three heads from the three different angles talking at the time. Yeah. That footage is lost, I think, but we have a still of that, which
it's the footage. Okay.
Is now featured in.
So Solipsist Dispatch.
Generally, no guest for Solipsist Dispatch. Occasionally, like we had our at the time biker friend on there, AJ8, and maybe Mick Cusimano, our filmmaker friend, but it was generally not guest driven, which I like it better when I have somebody. If I prepare a monologue, maybe I can do it, but I like it. I like having a conversation with someone. But just because that was sort of the cool thing, is it was kind of an after hours, like late night thing most of the time. Lawrence was the studio manager at the time, and so. Yeah, so it was sort of that underground video like feel that I like, that I admired. So that was cool.
So when was this, Mike? When did this show happen? What years? What was the time?
I think that was in 2010, 2009, 2010 mainly that we did that.
Then there was a gap. A little bit of a gap, and then
I retire.
And you segued into doing your podcast. Right?
Yeah,
that's when the podcast began, like 2012, 13. What?
Yeah, because I was doing a lot of the publicity, like writing the press releases and kind of a spokesman for us doing the Experimentally ILL Film Festival. We had like done interviews in the paper, and we went to this internet radio upstart in Boston, Unregular Radio. And I was like, let's try to do a thing here. And, you know, that was sometimes kind of stilted because you have constraints because of the staff or the time slot, or, you know, you're in somebody else's like playground. So then, and then they needed to fill, they moved on to the Weekly Dig office. That was the alternative weekly paper. There was that one, and there was the Boston Phoenix. And so we were in the office with the Dig. And that was like, they put us in one of the morning show slots while they were trying to figure out what else to do. And so we were doing a little more of a straight show then, where we have like local artist guests, or we talk about the daily news. And DL, it was myself and Lawrence, and DL was on there, and some other friends sometimes. And then eventually that
wasn't the best experience for me, but I didn't have much else going on then.
That's right. He always has to give the PS. If there was something better going on, he would have done it. I guess it
wasn't bad. It wasn't great.
So, but it was a live thing, and that was kind of cool. We did a whole rundown, like we did planning. We did planning skills for that. We had it, and then I did it, and then I just like didn't when they kind of kicked us out. I thought it was fun. I always wanted to do something like that, so I started getting like equipment to do podcasting at my house. And then it became more of a, sometimes it was just me then, because I just want to keep it rolling. And so then it became more of a guest-driven show, like sort of profiling a particular artist, like a one-on-one conversation. And sometimes we talk about movies or pop culture stuff, you know, also.
So do you think, Mike, do you feel like out of the podcast came the inspiration to dive back into public access?
Yeah. Well, I always wanted to do film
like,
stuff.
What possessed you to get into the public access ring again, Mike. You're
Well,
welcome back, Cotter.
Yeah. Well, as
You're
Lawrence
returning to your
was
roots.
kind of.
What's going on here?
Well, Lawrence was kind of galvanizing us to do, like, because you had done, like, kind of a similar style to a little bit what the show is. I mean, you had done sort of, like, with your show Random Acts. You always said it's like we say an experimental variety show, so kind of along those lines of, like, experimental film.
It's a video scrapbook of whatever I'm into at the moment or whatever ideas I got, and I just throw them in.
So that was your...
And you know what I also call it? I call it a sacrificial lamb to get me into public access studios.
Yeah, well,
whenever I go to a new public access studio, I go, I got a show. Here it is.
Yeah.
It's something ready to go. It doesn't take a whole hell of a lot of effort.
Yeah.
And then I can get in there and use their equipment and do whatever else. And yeah.
And we had like a backlog of a lot of short films or other, nowadays they call it content, which I kind of hate. Like, it's sort of lifeless. But, like with our friend Quincy Briscoe was on there and different people. So yeah, it got us like in there. So I think I always wanted to do more film stuff and I was trying to get motivated. And then just like DL started calling me every day about various things. And since Lawrence had gone to Los Angeles, we were trying to galvanize people. Since Lawrence had sometimes inspired or sometimes dragged people along, as you'd say in the documentary about my checkered career, sometimes against our will, we were included in Lawrence's productions.
Holy crap! You have a documentary too?
That's right.
I'm a new audience member, and I'm hearing all of this for the first time.
Well, let me answer the first question you said. What did you say? This is like info overload.
Just be mindful, because
yeah, I know. Sure.
Huge.
Well, I also want to get back to the Comic-Con since maybe we got some convention people listening.
We're working back to that.
That's right.
You're not doing it in chronologically.
That's right. This is giving me my OCD.
Right now, it's all over the place.
Assume people don't know that the listener doesn't know anything.
That's right.
About us.
About us. Mike's like a fire hose of information. Just spouts it out.
You're right.
You got to direct him towards the fire.
We have to structure it.
So right now, Mike, you're doing great.
Yeah.
This new public access show, you're back in the saddle.
It was come one, come all. Well, over the years, I mean, Lawrence went away to Los Angeles, and so we lost our ringleader for some of these productions where we would sort of be thrown into things.
Unless he works from with the technology from a bi-coastal,
That's right. Experimentally ILL.
These days you don't have to be in the physical
room.
With
Experimentally ILL TV, the TV show of Experimentally ILL, is a bi-coastal production. We've been working with clips on Dropbox.
Except it was a little harder to explain how to edit this little commentary I did. If I was in the room with him, it would have been easier.
Yeah.
But it was possible, I guess.
Mike, put a pin in that. Can you link to his commentary video in the description for the show so people know?
Yeah, sure. I guess so.
Directing.
DL is a political cartoonist, and so he was giving a political commentary and also showing his art.
You sound as blowing as the footage. As you think the footage is.
That's your own footage.
I think the footage is boring.
Of your footage?
It came out visually boring.
Well, I was trying to get to the fun stuff like Hey Kids Comics and stuff, comic book convention, but I always with the earlier
attacking Trump can be fun.
Yeah.
Okay, so
we were trying to get back. So we were like a man without a country, and we were trying to. The past few years, I did try to go back to a couple of access channels because when I was younger, that was like I was like a fixture at some of them, and I would work on like some event coverage and things, and then Lawrence and I would go off and do more experimental things. And it kind of fell away from that for a while. And public access really is sort of what you make of it as far as the productions. I think a lot of people just want to get in there, and it's sort of fun to experiment with cameras and things, but they're waiting for somebody to tell them what to do. Like they're
for
not
a lot of people,
a
it's
self.
Hollywood, Mike.
They're not a
For a lot of
self-starter.
people,
Yeah.
Yeah, if I can just interrupt, it's like
Yeah.
for a lot of people, it's just the allure of the studio.
Yeah.
Like, oh, we have this in our town? I had no
Yeah.
idea we had all of this TV
Yeah.
stuff.
But people don't know that they have it in most major cities. They
Yeah,
have
I mean, that's the other
Filmmaker.
thing is, like,
Yeah.
if people even know that it even exists or still exists.
And then they get in there and then they just do a talk show.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So...
They use about 2% of the creative resources and not all the way. And,
Yeah. So it was our. I tried to get back to a couple of places, and then more recent, like over the year, and then more recently, I don't know. I think like DL kept going back and forth about wanting to make films or want to do this, and we somehow agreed that CCTV was the best one to try to go back, or as DL says, the least bad. So we went back, and
pretty good.
And it is like a hip place, like it's hip area, Central Square, a lot of artistic people, and they really made it like super easy to get. We signed up, and they didn't make us jump through a lot of hoops.
Just because the other places are so restrictive, you can hardly do anything.
Yeah,
doesn't mean that CCTV is actually pretty good. They're way ahead of the second best one.
Yeah, and it's nationally recognized. They won an award, I think. You said best in the country or something. Yeah.
Have you guys thrown around the idea of going to the Boston Neighborhood Network, or have you guys looked into that one, BNN?
Every time I deal with them, something screwed up happens. But that was years ago. But my film, The Big Wall. They wouldn't put it on before 12 midnight. They made a big mistake, and it was like a big old-fashioned looking scratch going through it. I had to take classes in order to just put something on the air, not just to edit it, edit the thing. They had all these weird restrictions, but I haven't dealt with them in about 20 years, so I don't know what they're doing now.
So based on 2 decades removed, as of right now, from what we know, they're not the most user-friendly.
Yeah.
Well, that's fine. At least you found CCTV, and I mean...
And every time we post, like, a video, like the flying video, where we had our friend Hartley doing a monologue on a different planet and stuff. Every time I posted and I tagged them like on Twitter or Instagram or something, they reposted on their page like right away. So
they're more based on humanity than their own rules.
Yeah,
they're not restricted by their own rules as much as just being decent and humane to people.
Yeah, and the classes are free.
So you're doing the show in Cambridge. You and DL are doing it, and along the way, it looks as though, from looking at the photos you take, you've acquired a bit of a crew to help you out. Who are some of these other people who joined in? Because this is all going to go into the con, trust me.
Yes.
This all leads up to it. This all leads up to your grand appearance at the con, but who are these other characters?
I think we have to mention...
Yes, so we have esteemed New England actor Paul McGillicuddy was in a few of DL's earlier films and was willing to show and did some acting, but was also part of our behind-the-scenes crew. And then we got John McGinnis, who's a guy who was just on the local film scene here, who did his own festival called the Screaming Ostrich Film Festival. And I didn't know much about him, except when I went to our late filmmaker friend Mick Cusimano's memorial, I was going to speak on stage, and he made me feel kind of famous because McGinnis was there, and he goes, I said I did some Mick Cusimano movies, and he said, not just those, this guy's a catch, we got to get him on stage, because he recognized me from our friend John Hartman's films, who was like a grindhouse experimental filmmaker, and he had me act in something, and I think McGinnis went to the premiere of John's movie The Shackling, which I was in and helped produce, and at the time I was sick, I couldn't go to the premiere, and then McGinnis remembered me from like a few years ago, so that was cool. And I knew he was kind of a technical guy, and I have this group chat going like on Facebook, and so I just included him in there. And he was one of those guys who, like, sometimes when people don't ask you many questions, you assume maybe they're not going to show up, but sometimes that means like they don't need any more information. They're just that game to do stuff. So he was like going to be the videographer, but then we got this Eliseo Vigel, I think is how you say his last name, who, like I said, was like recently graduated college, was like a film student, and just liked going to conventions. So he's got a good camera, so he was down. CCTV has been good also to use as like a meeting place. Like a couple of times I kind of just had like an open studio. Like I said, hey, if you have an idea, just like show up. We'll use it in the show. Read a poem, tell a story, whatever. And we had we bumped into this other guy, Jose. Who's like a photographer for like Telemundo and does stuff in LA and stuff. And so he was down to help. You know, that's the thing. You got to physically go to a place sometimes, like to meet people. You know, like as DL would say, you can only do so much on the internet to network. So we did sort of a photo shoot with him, like publicity photos, and then we got Gasha, who was sort of in a bunch of Cusimano's movies, and she's like a fashion model type. So I'm like, she might like to do some photos and stuff. So I was just trying to invite different people and appeal to maybe what they were interested in creatively, with the hopes that later on we'll do some other things with them. And who else did we get? I guess that's about it for the immediate crew right now. But yeah, I'm always looking for
different times and different. Yeah. They're not all there at the same time, and they come and go. And Hartley Pleshaw.
Hartley Pleshaw.
How did you leave him out? Yeah.
That's right. I guess he did some stuff at the Townsend Public Access Channel, and he's like more of like a journalist guy.
He interviewed my brother for Imagine Magazine.
Oh yeah, he also writes
and my Eli my older brother knows him from something, I don't remember what.
Imagine Magazine's like a local film magazine that comes out. And so I know Hartley had done some acting in Mick Cusimano's movies, but I know Lawrence was also like a big fan of his from back in the day, and Cusimano had him more of just like part of the ensemble, like, and also ran. But Lawrence, and then I subsequently have seen the genius of Hartley Pleshaw and his ability to like improvise these very stately monologues and things like that. And it's a crime that his radio show is not a bigger show, so I'm teaching him how to do a podcast. His show, Active Radio, is on an AM station in Lowell. Yeah. So he did some monologues about AI, about 80s technology, and different like topical things that we're editing together.
That's kind of the premise then. That's the backstory of the show. So as Muhammad Ali once saying, "Hail, hail, the gang's all here."
Yes.
We are now arrived at the moment where Mike says, "Hey, what's this Comic-Con thing happening?
Yes.
Maybe we should record it."
Yeah, I mean, and it's all about like taking a gamble and like rolling the dice, because you don't know, like right down to, I think I was at our artist friend Marcus Niche, who has been in some local movies. He was in Mick Cusimano's movies, and he was also in Rod Webber's movie Northern Comfort. Marcus was in. I also heard someone named Greta Gerwig was in that film, but I can't recall.
Mike, but, let me interrupt you.
I was at Marcus's thing, and I was hanging with him after an art exhibition, and I decided I'm going to finish applying for these press passes, and so as a last-minute thing, I applied to the Fan Expo Boston Comic-Con's, press credentials. And then so I'm assuming I'm rolling the dice and assuming I'm not going to get this or that. And then a week goes by and I get an email that says, "You've been approved, for it." So then I'm like, oh shit, this is like, I always wanted to cover this thing. I have a little bit of a crew, or like a small bit of clout with these guys, because people, they're not self-starting. They want to do something, but they're not like initiating it. So then all of a sudden I just drop in the chat. I'm like, okay, this isn't a green screen thing in the studio. This is going to be like a field thing. And I just say, hey, whoever wants to like help. And we had like a few weeks. I think it was like a few weeks from then till the actual convention. And that's when I had put out an ad on that New England Filmmakers Facebook group. And that's when we got Eliseo and stuff. Like, that's the problem is, in a perfect world, you'd have people who are just doing the technical stuff, and then you'd have people who are just doing the writing or just doing the on-camera thing. But as we know, when you're like independent or you're a no budget project, oftentimes like you're having to do it all. So for me, whether or not I have ADD or whatnot, and especially when I get stressed out, it's hard to like, when you're under duress, it's hard to like think about all those. It's like two different skill sets. Like I've done camera work and behind the scenes things, but I also like to do hosting and on camera things. And when I do interviews, I like to take notes and hit on like a lot of these beats of people's careers and whatnot. And it's hard to be able to think about, like, get the interview right and then make sure, like, did you turn the camera on? Is there sound? Is there this? Is it? And so it's like two different mindsets. So I'm trying to get a crew together. It's better to roll the dice and try it than to, like, in the past, I would go to these comic book conventions as a fan and then say, kick at myself, oh, I really want to cover this and have a real crew, because when I was like a young teenager, I had a whole crew at New TV and we would shoot events and things, and I'm just like, why don't I get that for myself? So it was about taking the initiative, advocating for myself, and gradually in this group chat we have for the CCTV Experimentally ILL show, you know, I just started mentioning Comic-Con, like, hey, is anybody down? And yeah, I got that Alicio, and so I was nervous if people weren't going to show, but then I said to John McGinnis, like, hey, are you down? And I think sometimes group chats can be like kind of overwhelming for people, and like sometimes when you're down to the wire, you have like a time crunch, and sometimes, you know, people leave you on red, like they just don't. You need to like know, like, you know, hey, the PR guy like needs to know how many people are coming or what the names and the titles on the passes and things.
You don't communicate enough.
And sometimes people don't respond, and like it's because they're busy and stuff. But sometimes you got to hit up people directly, and you got to bug them a little bit, or like entice them a little bit, especially when you can't pay them. So yeah, kind of down to the wire. I wasn't sure exactly who was going to show up, but then people showed up. We had like 4 or 5 people off and on. So yeah, I don't know. I'm tired of ask me something else about it.
Well, Mike, I think part of this, if people are paying close attention to the conversation here and what's being described, they might notice an undercurrent of topics like anxiety or doubt or stress.
Yeah.
So there's an emotional component to this, you know, that ties right back into our art collective name, Experimentally ILL.
Yeah, I think it's.
So I don't know if you're comfortable talking about this, and if you're not, don't. But tell us a little bit about yourself, like if you don't mind elaborating a little bit on your emotional background regarding crowds, regarding yourself. I mean, it seems like you grapple a lot with self-doubt.
Yeah.
It seems like you have things with anxiety, and I'm saying this because I myself have come from that background. I grew up.
Most of us are what would be considered have diagnosable mental conditions. I don't know how to phrase it right, and don't we? I mean,
I know growing up that I had gone to see therapists at different points, and one of my earliest traits was being painfully shy and introverted.
Yeah.
To the point where I would just say whatever and agree with people so they wouldn't yell at me, or just so I could get out of the situation, or because I said what I thought they wanted to hear. And it took years, and I mean years, of work to get that out of my system, to the point where I can say what I want, do what I want, act the way I want, damn the torpedoes, and never mind the consequences. So I'm hearing a lot of similar things with you in regards to stepping into the leadership role, handling the rigors of production, grappling with a little bit of self-doubt and trepidation in approaching people, saying.
Yeah, Mike, you seem to be the leader of this more than I. It's not like exactly half and half effort.
Yeah,
between us. You're the leader of it.
It seemed like, Mike, and you even kind of mentioned earlier, you kind of initially, you're a friendly guy, and you went into this whole thing kind of with a more of a collaborative. You said it in your own words, more of a hippie.
Yeah,
kind
that's
of
what we've been saying.
Let's all throw ingredients into the pot and just see what comes out. But we both know that that's not conducive to running a kind of a high stress production.
It isn't all. Yeah, it's sometimes an excuse to.
Wouldn't you agree that someone would have to take the reins and really have a direct, steady hands in order to see that thing through?
And I hate like writing things in planning stuff by writing things out. But it does come out better when you do that. And if we just say we're all going to just meet here and see what happens, that's kind of a bit of an excuse to do less work. So,
Mike. So in this case, that's a good point, DL. I don't think, Mike. I don't think you're. I don't think either DL's not saying you were dodging work or anything like that.
No.
The thing is, like, that.
Listen. Let me finish. So, I think you learned trial by fire. Did you kind of learn in the middle of it that you had to take a stronger hand with this whole thing, or did you kind of learn that at the very beginning of, like, maybe like when you were getting the Uber to the event, like, oh shit, I gotta knuckle down a little harder here. Like, maybe having a more approach isn't the way.
Well,
I don't know what.
Yeah, I mean, maybe that's just like. I keep.
When did you realize that?
I realized that. Well, I won't say. I realized that when a couple of the camera guys got there earlier than DL, and I had in my head, well, this is sort of like a documentary of like me and DL and Hartley, whatever. It's like we go to Comic-Con, so like in my head. It was like, surely the videographers are going to wait for us, or we're going to find like a meeting.
I knew they would. I know they might not.
But I also remember that in the outset, like the early outset, I think part of it is also, well, I think a lot of creative people have some self-doubt, some imposter syndrome, even like big people talk about, and sometimes it doesn't really totally go away, but you have to find a way around it. And so I also think because it was like volunteer, and it had been a while since I worked with a volunteer group, some of the guys I didn't know very well, personally and stuff. And yeah, being in the leadership role, it was almost like part of me like didn't want to say like you have to do this or that, because I thought maybe they think it's constrictive or this is too much like work. And I also thought everybody is different in how they approach things, and in my head I was like, surely they'll approach this the way I would, which the way I would is like, here, let me...
You have to spell out everything and be blunt sometimes.
Like, the way I would, like, okay, I'm the videographer, but, like, these guys or this guy asked me to do this thing, so, like, I'm going to wait at my post and be like, hey, man, like, I got the camera, but, like, what would you like today? And, like, but if they were following my instructions, I guess the most specific I got early on was, like, hey man, like don't worry about, I just wanted to impart this idea that it was going to be like a low stress thing, because I thought, well, this is work, and they'd be like, screw it or something. But I got to think more positively too, that there are people like me who are just into it and who are down to do stuff, but you got to tell them, what to do. And so yeah,
it's okay to lead, Mike.
Yeah,
I think that's the lesson we all learned here. It's okay to see what you.
So want. What we're gonna? Also there was like a time where I'm like, hey man, like I'm gonna be in the area. Like if you wanna, would you find it helpful? Before you shoot this, would you want to, meet up? If it's helpful, I'm available. And then they don't respond, or they don't respond to that. And what I need to get better at, self-advocacy, is like, hey man, like I gotta be honest, like. I'm directing this thing, and like I would find it helpful if you met me, because then we can get it clear on like what we're doing or what you can do, and what you can't do.
Yeah, the bare minimum of communication.
So,
or sometimes even less than that.
Yeah, so because even though it's a fun, so if they were following specific instructions, the earliest thing I said, it's not gonna be, you don't have to shoot all the time. We're gonna shoot some intros, and hey, like let's get some B-roll. So. You go to Comic-Con, there's a lot of activity, colorful costumes, different things to see and stuff. and I think people are just stoked to get in for free and shoot some Comic-Con, and there's B-roll that has such general expectations, but some of it, the schedule for the show sometimes isn't finalized, right till up to the wire and stuff, and so first I thought I was only going to have one videographer guy, and then I realized, now I have two, and I didn't want to tell one guy not to come or something, so.
Yeah, I wasn't really helping with that. So I know.
So now,
at all.
One thing though about DL, only DL.
Yeah.
It was
I wasn't doing
leadership roles and taking charge. DL. I saw some of the footage.
Mm-hmm.
And
I wasn't doing camera, so I
you told us
charge of something.
I was impressed.
You told us when to film shit.
With what he did.
Yeah, I was trying to get us to the celebrities because I knew later on we would feel bad, bad if we didn't take advantage of that. But I have some.
Step it up.
But it's easier for me. I have a problem with. I don't want to get into that. I don't know how to explain this. I don't have much of a problem talking to celebrities, but I worry about things I give them that I accidentally gave them something personal or something. So, but I don't have problems talking to them. They're just people, maybe a little bit more arrogant and conceited, and maybe a little more talented than some people. But they're just people. They're no better than anyone. So I don't feel bad talking to them. I just worry about what I give them because it would be so hard to get it back if I was worrying about it.
When you say about giving something, you mean one of your
samples of my artwork or things like that.
What was cool at the convention, because the past year or so, they would have
left it there anyway, probably.
The past year or so, I got back to doing visual art, and then Lawrence encouraged me to make more prints. Great. So both DL had this great Star Trek cartoon, and I had a Gonzo Spiderman and Batman. So I did get some pictures with an actual Batman and a crew of Spider-Men. So as far as giving things away, I guess that's what.
I spent 3 hours on that. I had no occasion to give them to anyone. And it's not because of I have OCD. It's not because of that. It's just it was that with the celebrity, but not with the other people. It's just that there was no occasion. It wasn't appropriate to give them my pictures.
Yeah.
They weren't of Spider-Man. I had one of Star Trek.
Yeah.
But everything else was not Comic-Con subject matter.
Yeah.
So,
it wasn't the genre.
I was really impressed how you corrected one celebrity in particular. I won't say their name, but
why don't you say their name? Is there some?
Do we want to build up to it? Are we building up to that part of the story?
I just wanted to get this while we're on the topic.
Is there a problem with saying? He was a great guy, Danny Trejo. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Well,
should we talk about? So,
you actually jumped in and corrected him, which was great. I thought that was great.
Yeah, we got.
We both did.
Yeah, well, I think we're at the right spot for it's we had generally talked.
Let's get into it.
We had generally talked about, we had seen our friend Rod interact with some of the Comic-Con celebrities and stuff in the past. And I think everyone's different. I think sometimes there are rules about it and stuff. But I think I might have mentioned to DL about getting someone to do a show ID, hey, watch Experimentally ILL, and some of the celebrities. And because it's hard to get, you're not supposed to do interviews. I had to go through the press person and stuff. But, if they want to do something, it's still a transactional thing. But it's hey, would you do something for us? And so I can't remember if I said to DL, I think to your point, Lawrence, is through the day, eventually I think DL kind of got the gist of what we were shooting, because there was some notion of what we were doing. And he was telling me,
you were doing from the beginning.
He was like, hey, shoot this, or shoot me doing this, or let's get this. And so I just kind of kept my camera rolling, and then the one celebrity that DL had recognized was Danny Trejo, from
the only one I recognized
from the Machete movies and Desperado, Spy Kids. He was sort of
Monk, Breaking Bad. I only know the shows he was on more than the movie.
Sort of this guy who turned his whole life around. He was in prison from a young age and came out, and he was a drug counselor, and then he became an extra in the movies for a while, and like he was like a character actor in like B movies and stuff. And he's like now he's like known to be like a really nice guy who always plays like tough guys because he looks like this tough Hispanic dude. So, but our friend Rod was always saying how game Danny Trejo was on the convention scene. He was always like, "You could get Danny Trejo, you could get Danny Trejo." For years we heard about this and didn't quite know what he was talking about until like we were on the part of the floor at the celebrities where maybe I think it might have been like an hour before the end of that day's show.
Yeah.
So
and Winkler and Shatner weren't there.
They packed up early.
Shatner's 92, and I don't blame him for not wanting to be out there for like 10 hours.
And DL knew Trejo from Breaking Bad also because he loved that show, which they always cite Breaking Bad in my writing classes, and I watched it and loved it. Where I guess Trejo is famous for the most characters who die on screen in Hollywood, so he had his character. What was the thing? He had his head was on a turtle and then it exploded.
It's gross. You know what I mean? His head was severed, put on a turtle, filled with explosives, and then they exploded it.
And when you and I were standing there, DL, I heard some kid go by like describing that exact thing. But I can't remember if I even briefed DL and said, "Hey DL, let's get an ID or let's get him to say something on video." Like DL, we were both going back and forth, and then we had Paul that sort of contributed to covering his Trejo's fee to do stuff, and then so he
monetarily
we kind of were like both like a little bit nervous, trepidatious about it, and that was the best example of just trying to support each other. All these guys who have some social issue or whatever, being in a big crowd but being down with like entertainment and film and stuff, and so that was a way to kind of collaborate with somebody like that. And like all of a sudden, I kept the camera rolling, and all of a sudden, we went up, and DL was just like talking to Danny and saying, "We have this public access show at CCTV, and can you just say the name?"
That's the part that's easy for me.
Yeah. And I did regret, I remember vaguely thinking before the convention, like, about planning, because I know Rod had taken Tiny the Terrible around to get voices, and I think he might have had a script written out. And I remember vaguely thinking that, but of course my own negativity was like, we may not get that, so why even... But he did have we did have some trouble, like, because the convention is, like, loud, and, you're kind of under duress, and the handler that he had was, like, really nice, and helped us take the video and did some pictures and stuff.
He just wanted the name of the show.
Yeah,
we were describing what the whole show was.
So we needed to just be.
He thought we wanted to say say all that.
Yeah,
so he said, I'm not going to say all that. And then he laughed.
We said he couldn't remember it, so I don't blame him because people are asking you a bunch of shit.
He's 79.
But
it's good.
He has a ton of energy. But so we should have had like a snappy. We should have had like a snappy thing, but. We were standing there with him, and he said, "Hey, I want you to check out my favorite show, Experimentally Ill." Greg said Experimentally Ill TV, which is still correct. I mean, it is the TV.
I thought he was going to say Experimentally Mentally Ill TV.
He first said experimental, so I got another GoPro angle of that, and I'm edit it into some cool.
It is. It's a kind of weird name, so it was likely he'd get it wrong. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then he wants to add TV at the end of it.
Because I think he heard you say CCTV, and so then he kind of combined it. Yeah. But I think it was a good experience, and if we're able to do something like that next time, we'll be more prepared, and I think it was cool. And
just before we don't there's this. I feel it's a bit more ground to cover. So what was some of the roles of? We know what you and DL did. So what did Hartley do? What was this? Hartley Fleshaw, what was his role?
Yeah.
I don't think he even went up there.
We got Hartley on the floor for a little while. I kept my camera rolling where there's a dramatic point in our documentation where we have to get Hartley his press pass because, of course, the press desk where we get our credentials closed like a few hours earlier than the rest of the show. So, like, when we said we have a guy, he can't come till later, so then they said we can give it to these people. Then they said it's easier if you just take it. So I just had his pass, the only way for him to get in. And so we had to like walk. The reason why you need to do a lot of planning with these things is because the convention floor is like so big. Like you might have something in mind, and then you got to go to the bathroom. You got to walk all the way back. So like DL and I finally hooked up with Alicio to shoot like some intros with his good camera. We shot some of our own stuff, but we were in the.
I just want to say that my cell phone might die in the middle of this conversation. So if my voice cuts out, it's nothing intentional.
Can you?
It probably will work, but
can
I'm
you
not
plug?
sure.
Can you plug in the charger? Well, anyway, so we were filming with DL and I were with Alicio. Then I get a text that Hartley's there, but he needs his pass. So we had to go all the way from the middle of the floor all the way outside to get to Hartley, get his pass. Once he got his pass, I think we filmed some like monologues where Hartley is sort of my joke at Comic-Con. You see Batman, you see Spiderman, and Experimentally ILL has Newsman, because Hartley made a few jokes at his own expense, how straight he was dressed, always in his trademark suit, as the reporter.
Like a British concierge.
Yeah. So he gave the straight dope, as he referred to it, about Comic-Con, and sort of bridges the gaps in our activity in this document, where he sort of introduces what Fan Expo is, what Comic-Con is, what's going on there. And he was on the floor a little bit. We got some footage of us with C-3PO and R2-D2 and stuff.
Whoever was in those costumes, I don't.
Yeah.
They could have been fans, or they could have been from some organization. Who knows? Yeah.
Well, I think the R2-D2 was like an electronic thing.
Yeah.
I don't think it was a person, but yeah. And I planned to get a couple more. Hartley do some more interviews, but then by day 2, like I just improvised, and I had Paul film me talking to some of the cosplayers. So I talked to Greek Jack Sparrow, I talked to a Batman, and I talked to an Iron Man. And then meanwhile, we had John McGinnis set up a separate station.
Did you talk to a Barbie?
Paul wanted to get a Barbie, but we didn't think fast enough on that.
There weren't as many Barbies there as I thought there'd be.
Yeah, you'd think there'd be more Wednesday Addams, too, because that was a big Netflix show. Yeah. There were a couple. But John McGinnis set up a station where he was off camera, and he used my microphone to... He grabbed a lot of cosplayers and families in costume, and he was like interviewing them, too. So we'll have that footage to maybe use, or maybe put in like a montage,
Yeah, make it a montage.
Yeah.
Like with effects and add effects to it. It's supposed to be fun.
Yeah.
Try to do interesting wipes from one thing to another, and effects.
And then Paul and I went off on a separate mission. We were trying to get Henry Winkler. He wasn't there. I was able to go up and talk to Jason Lee, who I shook my hand and talked to me for a few minutes, and was super nice, from some of Kevin Smith's movies like Mallrats and Chasing Amy and stuff. He wasn't able to do like an ID or anything, but he did take my business card. I told him about Experimentally, and I said, I'd love to see what you guys are doing. So, maybe we'll connect with him another time. He's doing photography. Like he was a pro skateboarder, became an actor, and now he's doing photography. So I follow him on Instagram. So I think it was cool. Peter Cullen was there, the voice of Optimus Prime, and I think Alicio did meet him, and I was talking to some guy in the cafeteria area who had like an Optimus Prime head that he waited in line to get signed. So for people who don't know, I mean, you can see so many different creative folks from the world of, TV and comics and all pop culture in one 3-day event. And it's quite a lot of activity.
3-day event, and how many cameramen did you have?
Well, I had 2, and then I also had me on my phone, and I also had a GoPro. So
Mike, you think... I'm sorry I couldn't do the camera, too. I just couldn't handle it.
In hindsight, I think McGinnis said he got some of the Jason Lee panel. It would have been good to say, like, day 2, McGinnis, you're on the panels, or... Well, Alicia couldn't come the second day, that's the thing, but... Even McGinnis did admit... McGinnis was more focused on day 2, in his own words. So I think, just being able to... like make sure we have coverage, as they say, of these different things. And just, me being able to say what I want, because nobody actually said to me, and no, I'm not blaming them, but nobody was like, hey Mike, what do you want? You know what I mean? So I can't assume that that'll be, that's my own shyness too, like you say, and that's my own, and everything is just coming at you fast. It was like being a director, because it's like anytime Hartley or anytime somebody was lost on the convention, or sometimes I would tell somebody we're going to do some big action, we're going to try to like do some thing like me and DL, and I'm assuming like a videographer is going to run to me, and like that still didn't happen. So sometimes that's just logistics. Like they might be in part of the convention center. This was at the Boston Convention and Exhibition Center in the Seaport area. Beautiful area this time of year. August 5th through the 4th, 5th, and 6th was the Fan Expo. But yeah, like sometimes they just can't get to you. So we did a little bit better job meeting up. Like the second day, I said you meet me at the press registration. But so that was like a little bit weird.
I was only there on Saturday. Yeah.
Yeah, but yeah. What else? I mean, I think I learned a lot.
So, Mike, we know your perspective of the events, and
Yeah.
you gave that nice overview. Now,
Yeah.
if we don't mind, DL. See,
I already said some of it. Okay.
but you've never been to a Comic-Con prior
No.
to this one, or
No. Yeah.
DL thought it was going to be a fetish show.
Little news segments and Big Bang Theory, but not only that, also news segments I've watched.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
do you think you'd attend another one after this one, or
If
what?
it's in a whole year from now, maybe, yeah.
There's one. Paul was like, "We got a good."
a whole year to recuperate.
Paul or Hartley or somebody was like, "We got a good thing going. We got to take this on the road." Is there another Fan Expo? Is this a franchise thing? And it is. There's the Rhode Island.
Ready to go.
There's the Rhode Island Con in November.
It was fun when there were some good costumes, and I liked when we sat in the cafeteria and videotaped each other. That was good.
Yeah.
I didn't like a lot of it, but I liked some of it.
But is that specific to
It was
comic?
way too much. I hate Spider-Man. Sorry, it was way too much Spider-Man.
Why don't you like Spider-Man, DL?
I don't know. I'm just sick of it. Unless they do something unusual with it.
Well, it's because the Spider-Verse movie just came out, which I saw, which I thought was good.
It is saturating pop culture, right?
Yeah, I know. Yeah, if they do something like satirical or he's half spider, half like mutated to something else, then maybe they could do something with it.
They did do that, wasn't that the Clone Saga?
I told you they did that in one of the comics.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
into nerd territory, but
Yeah.
All right, I'm sure they did.
They have done.
I'm sure they did it, but mostly it's just regular Spider-Man. All right.
Was there
But
anything?
here we are. So
Yeah.
we got one in the can, one's in the can, and one's one and done. And here we are now at this point in this evolution of your public access show, Mike, with a mountain of footage.
Yes.
So there's been talk, okay?
Mm-hmm.
This is related to that mountain of footage because that mountain of footage right now, nobody has seen the edited products.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody knows what the final beast looks like yet.
Mm-hmm.
So it's all speculative, and there's been talk about...
We don't even know what it'll look when it's edited.
Exactly. There's been talks about a mission statement of experimentally ill as a whole.
Mm-hmm.
Some people have said, some people have asked, what are we?
Mm-hmm.
Are we an artist collective? I mean, what background do we have? Who are we? Why are we calling why are you guys calling yourselves that? I mean, what material do you have to show for it besides, some film festivals you did over a decade ago and this infrequent, no offense, infrequently put out. But no, and it's not a slag. I want to hear more.
I don't care. I don't know how to answer all that. I think it's a human imperative to want to create things and to do things. Yeah. And so people aren't neutral. They say,
none of us all.
No one's asking you to do this in the first place.
Right.
Our human imperative in it to make things. I used to want to be real creative. Lately, I've been more. I'm getting older. I'm more exhausted. I'm on some medication, so but I only want to be creative sporadically once in a while. Mm-hmm. So or not as just so I don't just sit in my apartment and do nothing. I mean, I just want to have to do something. I don't know. I don't even know how to do things in the arts. Mm-hmm. So,
but did you at one point or another? I'm just asking you. Did you have any sort of misgivings or
Yeah.
questions about why we were called experimentally ill, or like,
I don't care about the name. The name would bother some people.
He keeps mentioning that, but people haven't said that, I guess.
It bothers my caseworkers.
Oh, really? It bothers them?
They say, well, that's certainly a provocative name.
Isn't that good? Isn't that what we're going for?
It doesn't bother them. I think it bothers them, but they're trying to not act like it or something.
Yeah.
I think it's cool that we, this is really, we're starting from scratch again.
Mentally ill people making experimental film.
This is the real attempt now at getting the band together and making a solid product.
I would like to have a new name, but Experimentally ILL is a good name, so I don't mind using that. I mean, using a name we've already used.
Mm-hmm.
It's such a good name that but if it wasn't a good name, I mean, generally I'd want to come up with some new thing, but that's a good name, and so it's fine if we use that.
Mm-hmm.
And for people who are, have been asking, like, well, what have you guys got a show for it? Where's your product?
Mm-hmm.
That's in the process of being edited. Right now, we exist as...
It doesn't happen overnight,
No, and it doesn't. No.
Mm-hmm.
So here we are talking about it. Everything is in the can and it's being poured over. And my whole thing with the Comic-Con or the Fan Expo show episode of your program, Mike, the thing I was hoping for is that we could, put our brains together and make a coherent outline for how the episode is going to play out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Rather than just, we have this mound of footage.
Yeah.
I'm hoping that you have sort of an idea of how you want the show to play out, and I'll edit it according to spec.
Yeah.
You can give some suggestions also.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. The both of you, because you guys
you can. Laura. You don't have to just play the part of the editor. You can give suggestions of what you want.
We want the Lawrence Hollie panache.
Well, that's what I'm going to do with the editing, but at the same time is, this was your idea to go to the con.
I think the story.
I think we should have a lot of lower thirds, like when things aren't clear. We should have like titles under people or explain things sometimes, because I think sometimes it's not clear. So I think we should have actually. I've seen that lately. Like if somebody says something you can't hear or is hard to understand, or that you have it explained or have it written out on the screen. Mm-hmm. I think that's one thing we should do when we need to.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think you guys did a great job. I think this was a big learning experience, and Now you know the
I think part of what we talked about is sort of the narrative of the episode, if you want to think of it as like a mini documentary, or and we also, it's just sort of especially with like DL and I getting together and kind of facing this thing, and well, I also have to I just bought another card reader, so I'm going to take a look at McGinnis's footage, and hopefully the B-roll is cool, and I think that when we're talking, show that, or we cut to there's a couple of times where I throw to like the montage of that, and then Hartley's monologues, like maybe he can do like the intro and the closing, and then we talked about maybe having some narration or a narrator kind of like bridge some of those things, Maybe we can throw in even some little, if we wanted to add anything, like little facts or information about the con, or about like con-related, superhero stuff or whatever,
Yeah. I have to kind of go to the bathroom, so I don't know how much longer you want.
Okay.
Unless you want
pretty good. I think we.
Unless you want audio effects that are kind of repulsive, and
are you gonna add that?
That could actually be great.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Lawrence loves farts in the content. I like when we throw this next video is from one of our friends, and then it's DL pooping on Barry. Like,
You're right. Yeah, it works. Mike is referring to the.
Yes.
Mike is referring to the one of the edited.
I never saw that.
That's right. You can see some clips on my Instagram, Michael P. O'Toole on Instagram. And,
yeah, I can imagine it.
yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Well, I think we covered.
Explain the promo video that you made, Lawrence, because you made this great promo video for our appearance at Fan Expo Boston.
Oh, I have full confidence in the abilities of Michael and DL and myself to create interesting content. I am well aware of our collective history, all its ups and downs, and how we've evolved over time. And I believe in the potential to make greater things. So, and I believe in our legend. Call me crazy, whatever.
Call it braggadocio, as DL often is.
Yeah, I don't know if the general public would care if we have a legend or think we do, but
nobody gave a shit about the Beatles until they played Ed Sullivan.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you're more interesting than Paul McCartney.
That's right. Look at Muhammad Ali's bravado and.
Do I want to hear DL poetry or any of Paul McCartney's '70s output?
That's right. Lady Gaga said it wasn't conceited to believe in your own work. When people tell me it's good work, I know it's good work. She said so. You have to.
Still, he loves songs by Paul. I think it's Wings is okay, but after a while, saccharine problem. DL, on the other hand, is always relevant and interesting,
and always funny.
I don't know. I should say something modest.
It's a travesty that more people don't have DL on their podcast.
Yes.
Yeah.
So my promo was to really lean into the legend of you guys hitting hey, Fan Expo.
Yeah.
You got some personalities hitting the floor.
That's right. I wanted to do the personality-driven thing. Yeah.
You got some.
You interviewed me trying to be funny. You had me say, but you didn't want me to be too critical. So I was walking a tightrope.
What was for people who haven't seen the video? Should we explain?
Yeah, which I don't think it did, but I think it was pretty good. But
pull in the promo, it was I did bombastic narration, and then it cuts to DL going, I don't think I have anything interesting.
I'm hoping something creative comes out of this.
And then it gets repetitive. Just use one of each idea.
Silently walking in front of green screen, like very low octane walk in front of green screen. And but that's the brilliance of us, right? We're doing this incredible.
It's like the Bad News Bears.
I wish we could do things with special effects, old-fashioned makeup, since we can't do CGI. I want to do things with a science fiction kind of element, not necessarily superhero, but science fiction.
Your new task.
Yeah.
Get a makeup person.
Yeah. I'll put out an ad.
Get some college kid who can do prosthetics and get him on the show.
Take a makeup exam.
I just put out an ad for punk and goth actresses or performance artists for our next.
Seriously, there's gonna be someone out there who wants to show off their makeup skills.
They need a Polonsky to work on.
If we don't do something with a story or something, I want it to at least be visually interesting.
Yeah, like a demo of.
I don't think my political commentary was visually interesting, but it wouldn't have been appropriate for me to put a lot of wild color bursts behind it when I'm talking about Trump's bad policies in real estate. So it's because of my subject matter. But I'd be happy with a show that just had a lot of surreal effects it would be good if it had some kind of a plot. I'm just trying to do what we can do that's the most realistic. Realistic thing at the time. Well, what I would like to do with that within the realm of being realistic.
Manage your expectations, but why not shoot they say shoot for the moon and you might hit stars or something, you know.
I'd rather do special effects than interviews generally.
That's actually a good idea. There probably is some college kid who like just wanted to do makeup and needs people willing to. But if you get the kid who maybe they flunked out of the makeup class and they burn your face
Yeah, but
off.
check this out, Mike. Listen, guys. So let's say DL wrote, or one of you guys wrote a surreal sci-fi script regarding like a man turning into an orange.
Mm-hmm.
And he becomes like the, you know, and I don't know.
It's Pulp Fiction.
So
call it, Pulp. Aren't you glad that I made that joke?
That's why this is why I love it.
And if we use an old-fashioned camera, it would be if we use an old-fashioned camera, it would be Clickwork Orange.
And that was the name of your short film with Eli Roth, famed horror director.
Yeah, we had an orange being peeled in animation, and I wrote Clickwork Orange, but it came out underexposed, so I never used it for anything, and I gave it back to him.
I bet you if you made like an effect,
and we had the grapes of Ross.
Of course.
Why doesn't Eli Roth do conventions? He probably does the San Diego or New York. Probably.
He should be.
Yeah.
You know, with the actors strike, I bet you if you guys did a short horror film and sent it to Eli Roth, this is the time to get it.
That's right. That's the other news report is that it was something in particular about Boston, but a lot of the...
I have an ancient connection with him, too.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
A lot of the big celebrities
really
backed out.
Yeah, but we didn't really film much of it. I said, do you have grapes in the refrigerator? We can call it the Grapes of Ross. And I had to explain to them that was a movie from the 30s, Grapes of Wrath. And then they said, so what? And then they said, well, I'm going down and filming it. And then the lighting was crappy and we didn't use it. But we used Clickwork Orange a little bit, and we showed it at school, and the only one who got it was the teacher.
So it was just like a non-reaction.
She laughed into her hand.
Great. I can't take it.
See, you still haven't told all these stories.
That was 1982, so it's time to move on.
That's why I have to keep interviewing DL, because there's... What?
All they did... I don't know. He might hear this, but they seem kind of lazy. All they did was sit around and watch the new MTV, and which just came out, and play. Yeah, they were playing computer. Mostly, they're just watching TV.
Come over here. You got to play Pac-Man with us.
Yeah, they didn't feel like making movies, and we hardly ever. We didn't make many movies. They were just sitting, and they wouldn't wear a costume. I gave them. They were late. I don't know if they were not extremely unlike. I mean, they were a bit laconic.
They got it together later on.
Hollywood. We got to get you to Hollywood. We're just going to open Eli Roth's door, and you got to just continue your program of trying to get them to finish your curriculum.
Yeah.
Yeah, 50 years later.
Yeah,
40-something years later, guys, we never finished.
I need you to wear this.
Finish Grapes of Roth.
Yeah.
But I mean, hey, Mike.
We did 4 seconds of it.
You write a script.
You gotta tell more of it.
Grapes moving around. Yeah, that's all they did.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah.
So you write a script, and you get some college kid to make the prosthetics for like a creature or something, depending on what you got in the story. Whatever it is, whatever, you know what I mean?
Yeah, and that's it. It's like little demo bits. Yeah.
Yeah.
Not even just demo. Like, you need a makeup person.
Yeah.
So you get a college kid.
Right.
It's like what George Romero did with, what's there? Tom Savini.
Yeah.
He had Tom Savini, fresh from Vietnam, come and work on his zombie effects for Dawn of the Dead.
Yeah. I think Mike should get those bodysuits that are like all one color.
Oh, yeah.
Maybe not if you do the green one, then we can play green sleeves in the background or something.
There's definitely a college kid out there who's just willing to do the makeup just to show off.
Yeah. I'd like to just have some crazy looking figure, and then And then I'd think of some. I should have a script too. I just don't know if I'm
the
up
race
to
is
it.
the race is on for who's. We'll just all try to write little bits and see.
The book I'm writing is too depressing for that. It's just. It's not supposed to be for like a supernatural.
So I want to ask DL. I want to ask, like, we know that you have a very keen eye, and sort of when things catch your eye, you have like a photographic memory. So when we were walking the floor, whether it's someone's costume, or was there anything like walking around the floor, it was just a lot of vendors, people selling their art and things like that. That was the main thing we got sort of stuck in. But was there anything in particular that you did like or found at least interesting that like caught your eye, or anything you remember?
They had one costume, and there was a bunch of lighted displays, like a LED, like those billboard LED billboards with the lettering. He was like covered with those. Mm-hmm. That was interesting.
Oh, that's cool.
I don't know. Some of the costumes were half-assed, and some of them were really good. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't remember. There was some women dressed as like Dorothy or Snow. They look like they are at an English tea party in the 1800s or something.
Yeah,
that was interesting.
Yeah.
They stood out. I don't think that was there's any superhero like English tea party lady or something. So
just all kinds of fiction. Yeah.
I hope that some of them came up with those ideas out of their own heads and just decided to do like a Halloween thing and just make up. I think when people do Halloween or something, it would be good if they could try to make up something out of their own head instead of just do a famous fan.
What do you think it is? Like, maybe there are those people who maybe like more people watch than like participate in the arts, but there's something about this kind of fiction that really like, even if it's not their own character, that really like gets people excited to want to make stuff. Or I know you hate the word inspire, but it did inspire some other art. Like maybe people spent the year on their costume or did art inspired by some other character. So
yeah. I just don't care if I like some movie or some actor. I just don't care enough to.
I know there's some really hardcore fans.
Expensive T-shirt with their name on it, or like when people buy shirts with the names of like rock bands, they're thinking of the song while they're buying it, and it's giving them a feeling. So they want to buy it because of the way that song is in their head. It's fine that I don't. Just to be a fan doesn't mean you have to spend a lot of money and go to a lot of effort for it.
Right.
But if they want to do that, that's okay. That's okay.
I get the gist that maybe some people have like things. Maybe some of these people have like some really straight jobs and a lot of expendable income, and like this is their one passion or hobby that they really unload into.
Yeah, so it doesn't matter what I think. They're just having fun.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Right.
Maybe they don't want to create something. Maybe they want to just.
Well, they can't think of an idea, but they're inspired.
Maybe they don't. Yeah, maybe. I don't know. I don't know how to. I don't want to talk.
If you wore a costume, DL, if you had to cosplay at Comic-Con, what would you go as?
Somebody offbeat from the original Batman series, like Bookworm.
Is there a Bookworm?
Roddy McDowell.
Is there a pun? Not like Pun Man, and you would be like covered in puns, or?
They at the beginning of. I heard that at the beginning of Sesame Street, they had a guy who made puns or something like that, and children hated him because they were just trying to learn the language, and then this guy was twisting the language around, so they got rid of it.
Yeah.
And it looked like the Bert from Bert and Ernie with a different suit.
Yeah.
And they got rid of the character.
Yeah.
What is that? Yeah. But who cares? All right.
Mike.
Yeah.
So your mission for the next Comic-Con. DL must be in a costume.
Yeah.
From the '60s Batman.
I mean, if we even soft scripted it, we needed to like force DL to enter the costume contest.
I was dressed as a Comic-Con interviewer.
You were dressed as
wearing a skull shirt. I didn't want to wear that, but I wanted to wear something that's unusual even there.
Yeah.
But my Bob Marley shirt was filthy, so
Like
the one that says Uprising. So
it's
that's
super
all I had.
original. We needed to force DL into the comic contest, the costume contest.
Yeah, costumes are uncomfortable, and I was already uncomfortable there.
Yeah, that's the baseline.
I wouldn't mind doing a costume if we were making a video or something, and it
That's
would be
right.
videotape. But if it's just going to go out there and not be recorded.
Well, that's why we did make a video. That's the show.
But it's all right. You win. Okay, you win the conversation.
How great would it be, like, seeing, like, Harley in the most elaborate, badass, multi-layered Batman costume with multiple pieces of, like, complicated armor?
Yes.
And then he's doing his news segment.
I mean, he tried to say to me, like, because he asked me how to dress. I said, "Oh, you're going as yourself, so however you." But then I did make a joke that he should be the George Reed Superman.
Not when I'm at Comic-Con. I'm already. If we do it in the studio, I'll wear a costume. I don't want to wear a big elaborate costume.
So that's the next.
Uncomfortable.
That's the next project is to add like interstitial segments from the studio where we're referencing the Comic-Con.
Maybe we should film that. Maybe we should look at the if you can look at the footage and see what would be good to add to it in the studio. I don't know.
just like Key and William Shatner.
I have to go to the bathroom, and it's obnoxious for me to keep saying that. So, I guess I have to go now. Okay. Have a good rest of the conversation.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Ladies and gentlemen, DL Polonsky. DL out.
But hey.
Yeah.
So that's I think that's a good jumping off point. I think that's a good wrap up point.
Yeah.
I think it was a good summation of
what was
your Fan Expo experience.
Yeah. Well, let's do a couple minutes about you had experiences at Comic-Con where you were a full character for the full day, right? As cosplay.
Since being in California, I've attended the WonderCons and the San Diego Comic-Cons, yes.
And they seem really nice and liberal about getting the guest passes and the press passes and stuff.
Well, Mike, it's what I told you. I mean, that's where I learned the Emperor has no clothes.
Yeah.
When I submitted, see, here's how you do it, folks, and this is a very...
I think those are the bigger ones, but they're also somehow less for profit. There's some kind of a good mission statement in there where they're more open door, if you do the, process of it, and you have some creative.
This is a very roughshod, no frills overview of how I got in. Mm-hmm. Because I was able to get into the WonderCons and the Comic-Cons never having to pay once.
Yeah, those are owned by the same people. Yeah.
Yeah, but so here's what you do. I mean, they want you to submit your creative credentials through IMDb. So what does that mean? If you're, in my case, I'm a video producer. So I had to send them... I cut together a little reel of the things that I had edited. I had to send them printed material in a packet, like an EPK. And then I had to direct them also to my IMDb page, which had the different productions I worked on. Now, the skeptic among us might say, "Oh, but you were just in a bunch of little productions, local productions, public access stuff, and we did mix movies.
Or you were an extra.
You did small, no-name movies with no-name producers. Their words.
Yeah.
And you were an extra. Big deal.
So why try?
Why try at all? Guess what? Comic-Con counted that as legit because it is legit.
Yeah. All
that stuff collective. I wasn't really thinking it at the time, but then I did a double take. I'm like, yeah, that is a lot of stuff. And I did make a lot of videos. And I am doing some unique work that to the naked eye, to someone who wants to do that stuff, it looks impressive.
Yeah, it's going to make them look good,
I Spielberg or anything. No, I'm no Steven Spielbergo. But it was enough. My point is, don't underestimate.
Don't sell yourself short.
Yeah, don't sell yourself short. And also, what I keep telling you, and what I'll tell everybody is, you never know.
Mm-hmm.
Submit it.
That's what I learned as far as like approaching celebrities or people to collaborate. It's like 50-50. It's like sometimes you get what you want and sometimes you don't. And it's a little bit weird. Sometimes it is a little bit weird, like going up to some star that you like and knowing like, okay, well, I have to kind of negotiate with them for like what we want as far as any kind of like collaboration and stuff, or even like a little bit of money or something to do this transactional thing. But then you just realize like they're friendly, but they're not like your friends. So you have to just negotiate, and as long as you're respectful, you know, you just move on, you know, and sometimes you get it, and like we got with Trejo, and sometimes you don't, and it's all good, you know, and you just have to get, like, I have to learn to pitch stuff, and I have to learn to, like in radio, it's called a get, you know, like I saw like pro radio people that are like, you know, how in their resume, it's like even like a short interview, if you got it with some star or something, it's a thing, you know, so it's just like part of the business, part of the scene, you know.
Yeah, and Mike, you know, coming from a background of low confidence and, you know...
you have to just be confident and just believe in it, because certainly, even if you don't get it, certainly you not believing it, or somebody else said, you have to bet on yourself. It's like betting. It's like a gamble. Sometimes you get it, sometimes you don't. But you can't go in. Yeah.
But check it out, right? So it's like, coming from a background of low confidence and not sticking up for myself like I should have been, building myself up over the years, and also coming from a background of cheesing out and stuff when I was young, like talking about things but not doing them, I'll tell you something. You want to know what the worst thing that can happen for you when you're in that position? If you take the chance and you hit people up, the worst thing if you come from a background of cheesing out and low confidence, the worst thing that could happen for you is you're going to put yourself out there, and guess what? They're going to say yes.
Yeah.
So the worst thing that could happen for you actually is for them to say yes, because then you have to step up.
Yeah.
Now you got to step. I think what it is for us is the fear of failing.
Yeah.
Knowing inside that we will probably get what we want.
Yeah.
And then getting to the point where, oh sugar, I got to perform.
Yeah. And
now I got to do this. And that's the thing that used to hold us back. But what you realize is, you know what? You're never going to be 100% ready.
Yeah.
And that's the space to live in. Always being like, we just got to do this. Like, I'm ready. Get yourself reasonably prepared. Like we talked about regarding the Comic-Con, you know, get a lay of the land, find out who's sitting at what booth, find out, like, you know, determine if there's a narrative to the video production.
Yeah.
Right? Write down the questions you want to ask. That's being reasonably prepared.
Right.
And then you go to it, and you're going to live with the fact that you're in a crazy environment and there's all kinds of variables.
Yeah, like it's like going hiking, or I don't want to say like going to combat or something, but it's like you can pack your bag with your tools and you got your troops there, and something rogue is gonna happen. Like there's always a rogue, like
a bear shows up.
Yeah, so.
Or as George Carlin would say, the roof
flies off. Yeah, so.
You know, like. You just, like Bruce Lee would say, you got to be like the nature of water. Be prepared to just flow with it and be like, okay, all right. You know, we're down to one battery. Oh, one of our cameras just crapped a bit. Okay, get out the iPhone.
Or then it's also the alternative to that is like, we only needed one battery, and now I have to carry around like all this extra shit.
But then you prepare yourself.
Yeah, better to be prepared.
You mentally prepare. Or, all right, no celebrities want to talk to us. Let's talk to the costume people on the floor. There's going to be enough interesting folks and sundry Batman knockoff costumes to talk to.
Yeah, and that works.
It.
Yeah.
So you learn, and that's what I
how
learned.
To like manage the time, you know, like because the time goes anyway, so it's like make the most.
Yeah, the time is gonna pass.
Yeah.
And that's what I realized when you asked me about the Comic-Cons I attended.
Yeah, tell us
I
about that.
attended is in my Goth Robot costume, my Goth Robot 2.0 costume.
Yeah, and that's like all DL is criticizing about the costumes is that's a commitment for the whole day.
But for me, that was the fun. For me, it's role play. It's getting to go. And what I would do was, like for the 2017 San Diego Comic-Con, you want to talk variables. You want to talk unpredictability. Well, check this out. So it's the 2017 San Diego Comic-Con. I get down there. Day one, I come down with a raging sore throat.
Yeah.
And like a temperature where I was just, what do the kids used to say, sweating balls.
Yeah.
You know, and my sore throat was raging. My nose was, I'm like, of all friggin' times to get sick now.
Mm-hmm.
So what did I do? I got myself on a cocktail of Dayquil and NyQuil. You know, I'm like, this is gonna friggin' happen. You know, you angry Lawrence.
Yeah.
So I took the NyQuil to stop the congestion, and then the Dayquil, I don't know, because I thought that could help for daytime stuff. and then to counteract the effects of the drowsy effects of the NyQuil, I drank a Rockstar soda and a Red Bull.
Mm-hmm.
So I was like medicated stoned. Underneath, I was like literally, I felt like a robot. I put on the Goth Robot costume, and I was just, you know, let's go look at all the toys. I was projecting so much Art Garfunkel energy, like low dick energy, like very, very, very hippie vibes going on. Like, hey, we're here, man. Like, we are here now. I was the embodiment of air.
That was like I barely got like I think any sleep that first day to the Fan Expo Boston.
Oh yeah, add to that I had like almost no sleep.
Yeah, you think you could just keep going, but
right. So I'm stuffed in this costume, and I'm in full costume. I'm wrapped in that thing. It's nearly impossible to get out of it once you're in it. You need like it's a 2-hour de-armament process to get out of the Goth Robot 2.0 costume. Okay, and then I just slapped my all-access badge onto myself. I put a piece of duct tape under it to adhere it to the costume.
Yeah.
And I just staggered. I went into full role play mode, and I staggered in the event. And it got to a point where, like, different press people were just pulling me over to their booths and talking to each other, look at this guy. He's been doing this all day long.
My favorite is when they were like, is that a real person? Like,
yeah, a bunch of kids ran up to me, surrounded me, and they asked me 2 questions. They said, do you like Fortnite? Because it just came out, and I just nodded, and they all screamed and high-fived each other with the Chad, yeah! Like it was a win for them. Then they said, wait, and then one of them pointed to the other one, they said, wait a minute. They go, is this real? Because one of them goes, I think this is real. Like, I think this is a real robot. And then they said, are you real? And again, I just did a slow robotic nod. And they again high-fived, like, violently. Yeah! And they took a bunch of photos and ran off.
Yeah.
Immediately following them, and this is where it got super uncomfortable for me, where I was extremely perturbed. These 3 girls ran up, and by girls, I mean, you know, 18 minus young ladies.
Mm-hmm.
And immediately I put my hands up in the mummy position across my chest because there's no way my hands are going anywhere. I am not going to be accused of anything.
That's right. Cosplay is not consent.
Well, cosplay is not consent, and I do not. So I screamed as hard as I could.
Was it a robot scream? Did you have any kind of voice filter? You got to explain all the accoutrements.
That's what I'm talking about. Within the costume of Goth Robot itself are 5 voice synthesizers that transform my voice into robotic sounds. But one of them is hooked up to my cell phone, which is playing a loop of robotic sounds.
Mm-hmm.
And I have that on a feedback loop.
Mm-hmm.
Now, all the mics feed back on one another and create reverb and static and all kinds of bleeps and bloops.
Mm-hmm.
So even though I might say, in perfect English, I want a cheeseburger, it comes out sounding like... it sounds like crazy feedback.
Mm-hmm.
But again, I was medicated, tired, and these girls ran up, and I screamed, no.
Mm-hmm.
Felt like David Cassidy at the 1974 concert where they rushed the stage and got crushed in front of the stage, and he screamed no, but they couldn't hear him.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what I felt like. And so then I screamed, get your parents. And I pointed wildly, and they go... And so I managed to get out, your mom, get your mom, because I could see the mother.
Mm-hmm.
The mom's laughing. And I gestured her, come over here. So she came over because the girls wanted a photo. And I said, Mom, stand there.
Mm-hmm.
And I put my hands up in the mummy pose, and the girls stood around me, and they took a photo. But that was where I was kind of crapping bricks.
Yeah.
Due to the limited mobility of the costume and my near inability to articulate human phrases.
Yeah. So
other than that,
was there? I thought you got some photos.
And then there was the Filipino comic book store owner who came up and started rubbing Goth Robot 2.0's crotch.
Oh, I didn't know about that part.
As Goth Robot, I ran up to. I slowly walked over to him to give him a high five.
So this was a male.
This is a male.
Now, is Goth Robot a they them? I assume. I guess they.
No, Goth Robot is a man.
Oh, really? Okay.
For some reason, it attracts a certain persuasion of people.
This is the anonymity, like sort of the alter ego nature of, like, I think wearing these costumes is kind of interesting.
Well, yeah, this is the cosplay is not consent thing.
Yeah,
yeah. You find out really quick. There's a lot of.
Well, because DL didn't hear me, or didn't DL? I think initially thought this was going to be like the fetish fair or something. It was going to lean more into like the adult, like fetishy aspect of superhero stuff. And I tried to say this is a family show, you know. He's like, there's gonna be kids there, like 6 years old. So I'm like, yeah. It's like different audiences for this stuff.
Yeah, so this guy took the opportunity to do that, and I swatted at him. I'm like, hey.
Yeah.
And he goes, I can't understand. I'm sorry. Yeah. And I said, I managed to get out, no touch.
Yeah.
I said, shame on you.
Oh, God.
And I started looking around, like, again, I'm still role-playing. I'm still doing the robot moves. But I'm saying this, again, against all the voice synthesizers and whatnot.
That's right.
So he's looking at me terrified and pleading and apologizing.
Yeah.
And I'm gesticulating and I'm sounding like a broken Atari 2600.
Mm-hmm.
So that was another thing. Word to the wise. If you go in full costume and you're not able to speak, slap a sign on you that says cosplay is not consent.
Yeah, or have like a handler with you or something. Have a
handler, or put with duct tape, put a big X over your nether regions.
Wow. That's sad. That's...
But other than that, yeah, the WonderCon was good. The Comic-Con was good. People do love it if you manage to stay in character.
Mm-hmm.
And because, again, I stayed in character. I was there For the 2017 one, despite being sick, I was there for 13 hours.
Mm-hmm.
And I never broke kayfabe.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I was robot the entire time. That means walking around like a robot, moving my hands around like one. Same with the 2019 one. Same thing.
Mm-hmm.
And people were coming up at the end of it saying, dude, I've watched you all day long and you never once broke.
Yeah, is
Karen,
there? I know there
so
was
awesome.
there was a photo or two that they got of you that made like the AP or something, right? And then
Yeah, that's the AP press.
Yeah.
They were one of those that pulled me aside
Mm-hmm.
because I didn't see them.
Yeah.
And I just feel this hand yanking me, and I jerked. And then I saw it was press, and, I'm a press junkie, so
yeah,
press.
a press whore.
Can I say press whore?
I guess so. It's almost the end
So
of
I'm
the
like,
show.
I'm a large Orson Welles, like,
That was Harley Pleshaw's thing. He was standing at the front of the convention center at the end of the show, and he would ask a few people in costume, would you like to be on television? And they say, not today. And he's like, why would you dress like that and then not want to be on? But, that's their prerogative.
There are those.
Yeah.
But yeah, so they pulled me aside. They took a bunch of photos. I was hamming it up, doing all kinds of poses. And, but the second time, then, did I ever tell you this? The second time that happened?
What?
So, okay.
Is this
That
like
was
when Jackie
27
Martling tries to tell a story? Like...
That first AP photo session happened at the 2017 one when I was sick.
Mm-hmm.
The second time was the 2019. I'm walking around, I'm doing my goth robot shtick, and this real hippie looking, he looked like a low T version of Marcus.
Marcus Nietzsche.
Yeah.
What does he look like for those who don't know?
Marcus is picture a more wide-eyed version of Doc Brown from Back to the Future. The long,
Mm-hmm.
shoulder-length white hair. He's got the vibrant, crazy eyes. A pointlessly open shirt that goes down to the navel. Ancient-looking jewelry that looks like it's dipped in patchouli oil and cheese sauce.
Yeah.
And then finally he's got, khaki pants that might be aquamarine, they might be gray. They're kind of, what with them being so unwashed, it's hard to tell.
Allegedly.
Allegedly, they look a little bit used, is what I'm
Mm-hmm.
saying.
Yeah.
Because he's a man of art. He's a man of action and art. He's
Yeah.
all about art. Marcus lives for art.
He's busy manifesting
The body-
creativity.
The body is a vessel to go do more art. That's
Mhm.
where
Yeah.
Marcus stands.
Mm-hmm.
So this photographer that I ran into at the 2019 Comic-Con looked like a more lower octane version of Marcus.
Mm-hmm.
A more, shall we say, a less exciting version.
Mm-hmm.
And this guy comes up to me, he's like, hey, man, your costume, man, I'm digging it. And, of course, I can barely talk, so I just get out like something like, and he goes, hey, would you like to get your photos at the AP booth?
Mm-hmm.
Because he was a photographer himself. He had all the photographer and he had all the cameras and photography passes and all that crap.
Yeah.
And I nodded yes. And he goes, okay, go meet me on the second floor. I'll talk to some people.
Mm-hmm.
So I go up there, and, I go up there, and he says he also said he was going to show up within 10 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
Well, 10 minutes goes by, 20 minutes goes by, 25 minutes go by, and I'm like, screw it. So I walk into the AP booth. He also gave me a name. Listen to me with my bad storytelling. He had also given me a name of someone to ask for. He gave me a card
Mm-hmm.
with a name on it. So I go into the AP booth, and I hold up the card, and I speak as loud as I can. Hey, guys, is so-and-so here? And there's this dude in there and this chick, and they're in there, and the dude goes, get out of here.
Mm-hmm.
Just like that. Get out of here. You're not welcome here.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, whoa. I said, excuse me? Because the chick goes, we don't know you, and I'm kind of getting freaked out. And this is like a 25-year-old chick acting like she's 10.
Mm-hmm.
And the guy is the guy's puffing his chest out to her. She's not liking you here. You got to leave.
Mm-hmm.
And I go, excuse me, I was invited. And so at that point, I rest my mask up. I'm ripping off my scarf, and I tear the mask up, and I go, hey. I was invited here by so-and-so, the guy, the photographer's name.
Mm-hmm.
He told me to come here. I go, I'm not here for shenanigans. He told me I could come up here and get photos taken of me for AP.
Mm-hmm.
Well, you've been misinformed. You got to leave. That person isn't here right now. You got to go.
Mm-hmm.
And I go, well, you got to fucking watch yourself.
Mm-hmm.
I go, how about I don't leave? I go, I've been invited here. I go, I dare you to move me.
Mm-hmm.
And so at that point, the chick is like, oh, this doesn't need to happen. I go, no. I was invited here. Where's the photographer? And he goes, security. He calls over security. Security comes over. It's this tiny little Latina chick. Sir, you got to get out of here.
Oh, no.
And I go, no. I was invited up here. I started getting all Rod Webber about it.
Yeah, right.
I'm like, no, I was invited up here. I go, here's the card. I go, and these people are accusing me of causing trouble. I go, so now I'm starting to think I was punked.
Mm-hmm.
I go, you owe me an apology.
Yeah.
And sir, you gotta leave. I go, no, I'm not leaving. And then the security guard chick calls over another security guard, who then says, okay, we're gonna call the police. And at that point, I'm like, all right, whatever. And I just go, fuck you guys. I go, y'all suck. I go, I don't want to be any part of your stupid little photography powwow anyhow.
Mm-hmm.
And the guy had red hair, and his face was turning as red as his hair. So I slink off in my costume. I could barely move. And Mike, wouldn't you know it? As I'm going down the escalator, little hippie photographer finally is coming up.
Oh.
He's like, hey, where are you going? I go, where the fuck were you? I go, you know what just happened? Oh no, I'm telling you, go. I go, dude, I go, your boy wasn't up there. Go fuck yourself. And I just go right back to the convention, and I do what my instincts told me to do, was to walk around as goth robot. I don't know if that was too boring of a story. You can cut that out.
What we're saying here, folks, is that at conventions, a lot of activity, miscommunication can abound, and...
But my point is, though, it's also going to the whole thing of, the emperor's got no clothes, and Mike, what we always talk about is screw the gatekeepers.
Yeah. Well, I won't say specific, but it's like there are a lot of things when they send out, the official materials and stuff, like here are the rules, and sometimes you get there and you'll find that even the people, depending on the hour or the day, or the schedule, whatever, people are just people, and sometimes even the officials, like, don't even necessarily follow the rules, or maybe they don't know, so...
Or decorum or whatever.
Yeah,
you're dealing with people who are just maladjusted socially.
Yeah, so...
The final story I have was blindly walking into one of those big audience press panels and walking in front of the audience, in front of the stage.
Yeah.
Because my goth robot suit also has LED lighting up eyes.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I wear these glasses that have LED lights on them, and they kind of obscure your vision sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
So there I am walking through a really dark hall, and all I see in front of me are double doors. And so I'm thinking, okay, well, and I did notice that I had people behind me who were kind of following me around, because people follow me around the convention just watching me.
Yeah, I was gonna say, did you get any like video clips, or you should have had a video person? I'd never seen.
Some people take video of me, and I put that up on my Instagram page.
Yeah.
So I let people just, in the future, what I'm going to do is I'm going to do like you did, is get camera people to follow me. But that's neither here nor there.
That would be good.
But I know, I'm putting on a little bit of a show.
And this is Goth Robot 2.0, right? People can look up.
Yes. So I'm putting on a show. I'm putting on a little bit of a show. I'm going up to like drinking fountains and talking to them, and like trash cans and talking to the trash, and just doing the whole weird shit. So I notice people are following me, so I see the double doors, and I just absent-mindedly, like a robot, walk through them. Oh shit! There's a panel going on. You know, and I hear up on the stage, and so for this season of Arrow, we're gonna have Catwoman show.
Yeah, Berlanti was there telling us about the CW shows,
right.
And then.
So, but I'm walking in with my arms waving, and I'm doing the whole goth robot thing. I move my hand, my finger. Like, I got these gloves that have long tendril fingers on them, and my eyes are lighting up, and there's hoses hanging from me, and I got this whole black flight suit on and this big golden-headed mask, and I'm walking into the room just flailing my arms with synthesizer sounds coming out of me in the middle of this conference.
Yeah.
And I hear this from the crowd. I hear, oh.
A hush fell over the crowd. Is that?
Yeah, and then I hear the laughs, like, like what's that? And then from the stage, they're like, and anyways, we can't get that. Well, what the hell is this? And they go, look at this guy. What? I didn't know who it was, but I just hear over the microphones, I think this guy's lost, or this thing is lost. And everybody laughs. And I'm standing in the middle, in front, and I'm just waving my arms like, oh God. And at that point, I feel an arm grab me gently, and it's a security guard. And they're just like, dude, I hear the guy go, are you okay? And I just gingerly point to what I perceive as the audience. And he helps me to a seat, and everybody applauds when I sit down. So, again, then someone later on came up to me, and they're like, dude, that was hilarious what you did in that, and I'm like, I had no idea.
Was that choreographed? Again, part of the show? Yeah,
they don't. It's all part of the show. So, for me, it's the whole thing of going to the Comic-Cons. It's the whole thing of performance, but I respect what you guys did in documenting
it's weird performance art.
Weird performance art. Yeah. I respect what you guys did in documenting it and trying to make a narrative, and I'm glad I could be a part of the process and helping to helm this thing. Yeah,
I think it will be a very unique presentation, and exhausting, but exciting. Yeah. All thanks to, I think, some of the technology getting better, and also the support of Cambridge Community Television, too, with the equipment, too.
Public access, man. People don't realize you can go in there. Not only can you make a local TV show, but then you can, in turn, take that very TV show and throw it up on your YouTube page.
Yeah.
They put two and two together.
Well, and also, even with the press credentials, I mean, it says local TV, and we went for it, and that's what it is. And I think something like a CCTV or public access is able to present a unique way of covering, events like this. It's supposed to be about creativity and art, and, the comic book culture has become so big the past few years. It's like become this product thing sometimes, it feels like, or DL talked about gouging and people and stuff, but I think the art is still there, the creativity is still there, and this love of fiction, and that's why people keep showing up for this stuff, and that's why I still love it. There's challenging things about braving a crowd, but it's still fun to do. And
speaking of Henry Winkler, talking like Henry Winkler, addressing you like he addressed the kids at the end of the 1983 special, the anti-drug special, Strong Kids, Safe Kids, hosted by Henry Winkler.
Yeah.
I'm going to address you.
Yes.
I'm very proud of you and DL and the work you did.
Thank you.
I really want you to know how happy I am, and I love the two of you. I love you both. And all I want you to be is strong and safe.
That's right. I think it...
And it was a total contrast. And he was... total contrast, because imagine the culture shock of watching the then still on the air Happy Days of Henry, talking like, whoa, hey, dressing like a greaser in a leather jacket, to going to the coiffed brown corduroy jacket, cream-colored buttoned-up shirt of Henry Winkler, talking like a children's camp counselor.
That's right. That's right. Out of character.
Henry Winkler.
Yeah. Do you see?
And I go to my mom, Mommy, I don't think I like this.
I don't like the Fonz out of character. Is that?
This is Mom, why is it talking like the Fonz? This is Mommy, I gotta go to the bathroom.
What happens when?
Mommy, why do I gotta go out door to door handing Bibles to people?
Yeah, you could go to the convention as a witness.
You go to the conventions as a Jehovah's Witness. Oh no, Jehovah's Witnesses have conventions during the summer.
That's right.
You should go to one of those dressed as a Comic-Con guy.
That's right. Go as Spiderman then.
Yeah, go. Oh, I thought this is a con. It's a convention.
Yeah.
Aren't you guys dressing up too?
Yeah, that's right.
That's Comic-Con. This is Jehovah-Con.
That's right.
It's Jehovah-Con, and then they give it some dopey subtitle like, the Brave Kingdom Proclaimers Convention.
Mm-hmm.
1989, where Lawrence would then sit in his chair for 5 minutes and then sneak off to the Holiday Inn next door to their video game room and play Double Dragon on a coin op. That's how long ago it was, Mike.
Wow. They also have video game stuff at the conventions now too. So
my buddy Robbie Rangel and I, we would go to the Holiday Inn next door, and we didn't have enough money to buy Game Boys yet, so the only way we could play video games was by, arcades.
Mm-hmm.
This is 34 years ago, kids.
Yeah.
And we thought we were like hot shit for it.
Now video games are like movies.
Oh, now I could just have now if I was a Jehovah's Witness, I'd just fuck off to the top rows. Like in the convention center, I'd fuck off to the nosebleeds.
Mm-hmm.
Whip out just take off my tie, take off my dress shirt, take off my pants, and have my sweatpants on underneath my regular pants. And I have a t-shirt. And I would just play iPhone all day, man. I mean, I can't even imagine now.
Yeah.
You could just totally tune out now.
Yeah.
Brother Hollie, you're not paying attention. You're evil. I'm watching Mike O'Toole on Experimentally Ill, broadcast streamed live from CCTV.
That's right. To give us an ID, Lawrence.
Yeah. Lawrence Hollie, formerly of 40 Seconds in the Barbie movie, is here to talk to you about Mike O'Toole's new show, Experimentally Ill. Now I sound like Pauly Shore, drunk like, I'm the Weasel. Hey, once my man Mike O'Toole's doing a new public access show, Wayne's World. And him and my man D.L. Polonsky, weird local artist, is doing a new public access show. And it's going to be coming to you from CCTV. You should be there and see it. He may even have hot chicks one day there, but in the meantime, maybe you see D.L. in a Speedo. Oh, I'm getting hot.
Yeah.
Mike O'Toole, Experimentally Ill. Weekdays, I think, on CCTV. That's me as the Weasel, because I'm hungry and I haven't eaten and I got a piece. My brain is failing.
Yeah. Well, I think this is a good podcast. We can wrap it. I wanted to say we could. I know you're a big Spider-Man fan. Like, I'm trying to think of some general comic questions or when you got into comics or this kind of stuff. I remember talking to you about this at the Wellesley channel, and I don't know. I know you're a big Star Wars fan. That was one of the things.
Yeah.
One of the things.
Spider-Man.
It's all like lumped in there now.
Got into Spider-Man when I was like one of my look at it. The earliest people I remember in my life. No shit.
Mm-hmm.
My mom, my grandma, my dad, my brother, two of my uncles, and Spiderman. And I'm not shitting you.
Yeah.
One of the earliest things I remember saying was Spider-Man. This was back in 1973. Well, actually, I'd be talking by late 74. Because my dad was a huge Marvel Comics fan. And the earliest pieces of Spider-Man media he exposed me to, other than the Spider-Man tattoo on his cock.
What?
No, I'm joking. Way he exposed to me to. So no, Dad, you don't have a Spider-Man tattoo. I mean, maybe you do. I don't know. I don't want to know. I mean, I came out of that cock, so that's gross.
You can cut that out.
You can
Let's
cut
put
that
a disclaimer on this one.
No, the earliest pieces of Spider-Man media Dad introduced me to were the 1960s cartoon that used to show, the one that has the theme Spider-Man, the first one. Mm-hmm. The second thing was this ancient kids show that you're not going to remember because it wrapped up production 9 years before you were born, 1977.
It's, as they say, before my time.
Yeah, which infuriates me, by the way. But let's not go into that. You were born 86. This show wrapped up in 77. Mm-hmm. It was a kid's show called The Electric Company.
Yeah, I know that show.
And Morgan Freeman was on it. Mm-hmm. That's where he got to start. Rita Moreno was on it, which because of her, I became introduced to the concept of what an erection was.
Yeah.
Because my little self was, "Goodness, Mommy, why do I feel fond with Rita Moreno?"
It wasn't Princess Leia like so many others.
Well, she was the other one.
My generation, Amy Jo Johnson, the Pink Power Ranger.
Yeah, that was yours.
Yes.
Princess Leia, Rita Moreno, and Maria from Sesame Street were mine. Yeah. So I had a thing for Latina chicks and kind of half Jewish, half Irish chicks from the get-go. It's just one of the characters on the Electric Company was Spider-Man. And Stan Lee's whole goal was to introduce a new generation to the character to kind of like plant the seed. Mm-hmm. And Spider-Man would be on there and teach you how to read while he would beat up criminals that were specific to the show. So that was my second piece of Spider-Man media. The third piece was the made-for-kids Spidey Super Stories comic books, along with the regular Amazing Spider-Man comic books. Mm-hmm. A final piece of media, and this is something that most people probably never heard of, was something called rock comics. Mm-hmm. Like rock and roll, rock comics. Mm-hmm. It was a record that was a musical.
Oh, yeah, I think I remember those.
There was two of them, but this one was called Rock Comics, and it was like all these songs about Spider-Man, about being Spider-Man, and there was also a little like radio drama between it of Spider-Man and Doctor Strange trying to stop the Kingpin, and then in between those you get like these kind of like these Who Partridge Family knockoff songs because it was the 70s. It'd be like, "We're gonna go around and kick some tail, Spider-Man and Doctor Strange. We're gonna punch him once, kick him twice, kick some tail or two." Mm-hmm. And the record bombs, but I loved it. Mm-hmm. And that was I wore that record out. That was actually a really formative piece of Spider-Man media because that was the way Spider-Man sounded in that is kind of the way I've heard him in my head ever since. Mm-hmm. That and the 60s cartoon. Mm-hmm. It's like whenever I read the comics or whatever I think of Spider-Man, I think of that voice. Mm-hmm. That's how I got into Spider-Man. Mm-hmm. And then I remember the exact moment I stopped caring about superheroes for a while, and when I got into Star Wars. I remember the exact moment. And we were at this local carnival. I sound like a boring old man recounting stories on the verge of Alzheimer's. But
that's why we need to make a record of it.
So it's like 1970. It had to be like 1978, 79. And up the street from my grandma's house where I lived was my elementary school. And at that elementary school, they would hold a spring carnival. And I'll never forget, my brother was there, and he won some sort of carnival game. You know those dumb carnival games where you throw a dart at a balloon or whatever?
Yeah.
Win a prize.
Mm-hmm.
So my brother, God bless him, he was going to go win a prize from me.
Mm-hmm.
And he ended up having a choice. And in either hand, he comes up and he goes, "Hey, Lawrence," he goes, "I won a couple of things, but I can only pick one. And I won them for you." He goes, "Which one do you want?"
Mm-hmm.
I'll never forget this. In one hand, he had a Spiderman. They had these cheesy toys in the 70s. It was like a Spiderman, communicator. Like it was a fake communicator so you could talk to Spider-Man. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
It was all plastic and it didn't do anything, but it had Spider-Man's picture on it and a whole bunch of buttons. It was like a fake futuristic-y looking item, and Spider-Man's face was on it. And in his other hand, he had the Marvel Comics adaptation of Star Wars, which had just come out 2 years before, and I was super into. And I chose the Star Wars comic. Now, that was a monumental moment because up until that point, up until Star Wars, I was all about superheroes. And once Star Wars came out, it's kind of like that took over almost everything. Like, I still liked superheroes at that point, but it was just like a switch was flipped. You know what I mean? Like, do you remember anything that you were into that you kind of like the next day you kind of were like, you know what, this stuff is all the appeal of like warm, of like freezing cold oatmeal.
Well, there must have been
you know what I mean?
There must have been a transition between, when I was a kid, like by the early '90s, I was like super obsessed with the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles and the cartoon, and then there was that point where you got a little bit older and like Mighty Morphin Power Rangers took over, but but the difference is when you got a little bit older from that, there was a period where Power Rangers wasn't cool anymore, and to me, the Ninja Turtles always stayed cool. Like
that's interesting.
Yeah.
That's kind of what happened. Like it's not like I hated Spider. I was a little too harsh. It's not like I hated Spider-Man or superheroes. It's just like once Star Wars came out, that shit took a back seat.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like I was like, okay, I think the concepts of it all, I think I'm kind of done with it. Like I'd never seen anything like Star Wars, Mike. That's when it first came out. So to a little kid, that Star Wars was touching all the bases. You had
the mythology,
robots, okay, all right. The one thing that the one pop culture thing that I consistently loved throughout my life that never ever waned, even in the face of Star Wars, is the other face no, don't put words in my mouth.
I was gonna guess.
Fucking
Nosferatu. If I could only reach you.
If I could only reach you right now, I would call a certain someone over, strap you down, and then have him shave your head so he could get off on it. Because there's this guy we know that likes it when we shave our heads, but he doesn't admit that he likes it sexually. But he likes it sexually.
I thought this was a family podcast.
This is a family restaurant. This is a fancy restaurant. That's from Freddy Got Fingered. Mike, okay.
Tom Green.
Why don't you see Freddy Got Fingered? Please.
I don't know if I've seen the whole thing, but I should see it.
No, see, you dodge it.
That's right.
If you have a thing with this movie, Tell me honestly.
No, I went out of my way to go to the Huki Lao Chinese restaurant in Chicopee, Massachusetts, just so I could meet Tom Green after his stand-up performance.
Mike, buy Freddie. Listen, audience, tell Mike eBay exists.
Yeah.
Why don't you just buy it on eBay?
Okay.
You are missing like one of seriously the greatest freaking movies ever made, Mike. Mike, this is a fancy restaurant.
Right.
My dad's a molester.
Hey, Tom Green came from public access TV, and right.
We know that, but we don't care about that. I'm talking about Freddie Got Fingered. Mike, you gotta see Freddie Got Fingered.
Yeah.
Mike, Anthony
right.
Michael Hall is in a scene, and he berates Tom Green about working at a cheese sandwich restaurant. He goes, look, you can either make your cartoons or you can go back to making your cheese sandwiches. Tom works at a cheese sandwich restaurant. And all he wants to do is eat chicken burgers.
People say our podcasts are unfocused, but I really feel...
The most dramatic scene in the movie is it's Tom and his father are at therapy together. His dad's being played by Rip Torn. And the father goes, all I want him to know is as he's under my goddamn roof, he's going to eat all that goddamn food that we serve, and he's going to live by my goddamn rules. And Tom looks at him so dramatically and goes, I want to eat chicken burgers. Mike, you know how you laugh so hard sometimes you're so beyond hysterics you can't even laugh? Mm-hmm. You just shut down. That was me. Mm-hmm. So the other figure that I remember from birth, the other pop culture figure besides Spider-Man that I remember from birth that I've consistently loved my whole life, even through Star Wars, is Godzilla.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I should have known that.
You were close. Ultraman close. Ultraman's Godzilla G's.
Yeah,
Godzilla, my interest in Godzilla never waned once to this day. Mm-hmm. I don't know why, but he's the evergreen. Mm-hmm. Star Wars, I would get into and then get out of by 1995 and then get back into it by 92 and then kind of phase out of it once, like, the prequels hit. And I really hate it now with what Disney's doing to it.
Hayden Christensen was at the Fan Expo in Boston. But
did he have a look in his face like he's just given up?
Yeah, they had a separate ticket panel of his that was sold out, and then they had canceled that for some reason. And allegedly people were saying because of the strike that the actors weren't allowed to talk about, like, current, or somebody said even past projects, but I don't know if that's accurate. There's all this, like, misinformation about what they can and can't do. So
that's a dude who is so close twice.
Yeah.
Because he played Anakin Skywalker in the prequels, and we all know how the prequels, depending on your point of view, they were either the greatest movies or, oh my God, they were terrible. I thought, I liked the third one, Revenge of the Sith. I thought he was okay. Mm-hmm. But then, for all intents and purposes, we all thought he was done with the role of Anakin Skywalker.
Yeah.
And then, who knew? Disney brings him back for the Obi-Wan show.
Yeah, that's
and they
right.
blew it. Mm-hmm. They blew it. They had all the toys, Mike, and they blew it. Mm-hmm. So that's why I say what was the name of Anakin's panel, like, could have been
sandwich and milk.
We could have done it. We could have been big abs twice.
It really, like, amazes, like, I like the earlier Star Wars stuff, but yeah, I remember my friend Max Goody, who went to some of the conventions with me the past couple years, and he was always trying to be like the celebrity autograph hound or whatever. He was always like, oh, I'm surprised you're not more into Star Wars. Like, he'd try to get all the autographs on one poster or whatever, and that's one where I like some of the movies or the mythology, but I don't geek out about, like, seeing the actors and seeing the other, like, it's kind of played out. There's, like, so much of it where
man.
It's just this whole corporate enterprise now. Even, like, Lucas sold it away to Disney, and Yeah.
Star Wars is in a position kind of like how when I was a kid, my mom would be hyping like James Bond.
Mm-hmm.
Like, and James Bond is cool and all, but like that was the big franchise in like the 60s.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And she was always telling me, I'll never forget being a little kid. And my mom is the queen of hyperbole, by the way. Everything is amazing to her.
Yeah.
So even if something is kind of okay or cool, to her it's like, oh, it was amazing. And it was like, you know, I saw James Bond, you know, she would show me James Bond years later, and I did think they were good.
Mm-hmm.
I thought Sean Connery was cool, but it wasn't like the end-all, be-all of entertainment. And that's the position Star Wars is in now. It's like, it's been bested.
Mm-hmm.
Do you agree? I think it's been, you know, the follow-ups, its derivatives have done things, they've taken the ball and run with it. You know what I mean?
Well, I really liked The Mandalorian.
I heard that was good,
you know,
but even that's crap in the bed now.
Yeah, the second season wasn't as good as the first.
Point is like, look.
Once Baby Yoda got a name, and
the point is like, Star Wars isn't a sacred cow anymore.
Yeah, it was like when it was only a few of those original films, some of the extended universe media, like novels or comics, that was interesting, but yeah, when they're just pumping out movies of like, okay, we need a young Han Solo movie, or a young Obi-Wan Kenobi movie, or a young, you know, they could tell the assembly line is like, somebody even said, was it the Red Letter Media guys, or somebody was like, with the Kenobi show on Disney, it was like, it's like they took a movie or a TV movie that was this long, and then they kind of just like stretched it, because they knew they had to make, you know, 9 episodes or whatever it was, like, so a couple of the episodes is like Kenobi's just like on a train somewhere and and it just feels kind of forced, you know. It's cool they got him back. McGregor was at Fan Expo last year, so I guess Star Wars is always a big draw.
It's that thing though, like what you just said. Like, one of the other most damning things is that Obi-Wan show.
Mm-hmm.
There's a fan film of Obi-Wan.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, I think, 35 minutes long.
Mm-hmm.
That is so much better than anything that Obi-Wan show did.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not even kidding. It's like, the fans are finally at a point, like, technology-wise, where they can make stuff comparable or better than what the big studios can put out. And honestly, now with the studios unable to do things, it kind of falls on the fans to step up.
Yeah. It's about the fans.
But it also goes to the whole thing of, like, the Emperor's got no clothes, the gatekeepers don't always know.
Yeah, you know. That's what I'm always impressed with, or more, like, shocked by, is, like, when we had the new trilogy, right, that was, like, really, like, a reboot, like, Force Awakens, and what was it, The Last Jedi, and something else.
The Rise of Skywalker.
Yeah, and it's like, and it so clearly was like, they didn't have an arc in mind. Like, they didn't, right? Like, where it was like, they had to right the wrongs of the second movie with the third movie or something, and it was like, I mean, it doesn't help morale when Mark Hamill himself, Luke Skywalker, in press is saying, like, I fundamentally disagree with what they did with my character. Like, he would never just give up and become a recluse, and Hollywood loves that shit. Like, I guess.
Let's count how many broken
breaking our heroes
of yesteryear.
We have them come back as old guys.
Yeah, that they're back as broken old men. Let's do a head count. Michael Keaton in The Flash.
That's right.
He starts out as a long-haired, scraggly guy who's just eating pasta in a broken Wayne Manor, listening to 25 or 6 to 4 by Chicago for some reason. It's a great song.
Available now on Warner Brothers CD.
What was that? Why did they introduce him with that? Did that song have any significance?
We should do a whole Flash review another time, because I remember it was impressive, the production design, that it looked, the Wayne Manor looked like the '89 movie.
It did. I didn't notice the king. I think they even had the King of the Wicker People statue.
Yeah.
But okay, so we got broken old Michael Keaton, Bruce Wayne.
Mm-hmm.
We got Luke Skywalker, busted old hermit on a space island.
Mm-hmm.
Then we got the one of the latest and worst, a real kick in the balls for me because I'm a huge fan of the character, Indiana Jones.
Yeah, which I didn't see.
Well, how do you? I mean, it's kind of like what Red Letter Media would say. How do you screw up Indiana Jones? It's like making oil. It's like making mashed potatoes. You add the water. You add the potatoes.
Yeah.
Like Indiana Jones. You know, yeah, he could be. It wasn't even the age that was bad. I can deal with him being 80 years old.
Mm-hmm.
Because it was more, watching him on screen, it was more than fun that he was capable of some pretty cool action and his usual charisma.
Yeah.
But they wrote him like, it looked like every scene his eyes were watering, and he's like when he put on the suit, like when he realizes his call to action, and he's like, oh, I guess I gotta do this again.
Why can't they get Danny Trejo? Like,
his getting into his indie regalia, you know, the leather jacket and the hat, the way they did it and the way he portrayed it was like, well, I guess this is what I'm supposed to wear again.
Yeah.
Like, and he had a worried look on his face, like, is this what I do when I guess this is what I do when I gotta go out and solve a problem.
Mm-hmm.
And then he can, you know, he's in the suit, but he can't fight. You know, he's running around, but like people are getting shot, and he's like, people are getting murdered. I'm like, dude, you know how many fucking people you murdered in all the old films?
Yeah, and it was like a joke. Like, remember when he the guy with the swords, and then he just shoots the guy.
It's like if he did it now, it'd be, oh, I'm so sorry.
Yeah, it's all woke. No.
And like Phoebe Waller-Bridge is you know, and I'm not anti-woman as action.
Is she the one from Fleabag? Or who's the one? Yeah.
And she's obnoxious.
She's like the sidekick
like,
or something?
I mean, you know what? Fine. Even if you had her in the film, but diminish her role and don't do that whole, I'm done with it. Woke crap.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's anti. It's you're not believing in what ladies can do when you're overemphasizing that women can do shit.
Mm-hmm.
When you're over there like, well, women can rock too.
Yeah,
like they couldn't.
Yeah.
You know, when I was taking martial arts classes back in Boston, I was ground zero of what could happen when you piss a woman off and she's physically capable. I got kicked in the face so many times. It was against this. I'm not going to say her name, but she was like a double black belt. And this chick was throwing me across the room.
Yeah.
She was shorter than me, had less muscle mass, and yet when we would grapple and get into it, she would go, "Ay!" Kick me hard in the chest, and I would kind of stagger and do the indie, "Oh, that was a good one." And then she'd say, "Shut up! No talking on the mat." Grab me, and then proceed to just toss me. You don't need to tell me that women can kick ass. I know. So overemphasizing it in a film is not doing ladies any favors. Especially having Waller-Bridge, your poster chick. Her looks like olive oil.
Does she have like action sequences in the movie?
It's like a combination of olive oil and Ichabod Crane.
Did she do asides like to the camera, like in Fleabag, where it's like we're in her inner monologue?
It was the Fleabagisms without the fourth wall shit.
Is this like her break into more of the mainstream, supposedly, like more of the bigger? It's a popular show.
No way that it worked.
Yeah.
No way that it worked.
That was the attempt.
It was the attempt to make her, of all people, an action hero.
Yeah.
You know, I know they are now Elliot Page But the person I've always got, when he was Ellen Page,
Mm-hmm.
I was always about her as being a lead in some sort of action-adventure movie, because she was the only person I ever felt had the verisimilitude of kind of being a natural, deadpanning wise ass.
Mm-hmm.
A female Bill Murray, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
For lack of a better term. Like, I always had hoped that she would have headed the female Ghostbuster film.
Well, they did. She was Kitty Pryde in the X-Men. One of the X.
Yeah, but they didn't.
X-Men.
That was when Hollywood was stuffing her into girly girl roles.
Yeah.
I mean, that was by Brian. No, it wasn't by Brian. That was Brett. Well, Bryan Singer did one with her, and then Brett Ratner did the follow-on. Was it Brett? Yeah. But my point is, it's Hollywood. She was underutilized.
Yeah.
While she was a woman, Hollywood just put her in typical roles. If I had my druthers, she would have been the new Peter Venkman in Ghost. And I wouldn't have shot it like the campy crap piece of version Paul Feig did.
Yeah. I didn't even watch that. There was an extra call here in Boston for that, but yeah.
I would have shot it like the 84 version with her, no shit, playing the lead.
Mm-hmm.
Wisecracking, deadpanning, and it would have ruled. And even hitting on another chick, because why not?
Mm-hmm.
Like, imagine her doing all the same Bill Murray things, but being a lech, but it's a chick being a lech to another chick, right?
Mm-hmm.
Why not?
Mm-hmm.
She would have been great.
It's something different, yeah.
Now she's Elliot Page, and I can never make that film.
Mm-hmm.
So my point is that this woke crap is just that Phoebe Waller-Bridge is no action hero. Indiana Jones is yet another broken old sad man. And they kind of did it with Yost, didn't they?
David Yost from the Mighty Morphin Power Rangers with there was the Once and Always, the Netflix special.
It was
Rangers.
Sort of kind of a low-octane version of the broken old hero.
Well, he was still active, and it shows he has sort of like a Tony Stark, facility, like a business. I guess he has his own command center underneath.
Yeah, but he's active, but also the chick is angry with him because she's making him responsible for killing the Yellow Ranger.
Oh, yeah. So
now, again, he's this angsty, sad, former hero of yesteryear that has to rise to the occasion. Like, is the only narrative way to rise to the occasion is to be depressed beforehand and then have to break depression?
Right, you have the tragedy you have to overcome.
Is depression the final villain to fight for any of us?
I think so. That's right. Man versus himself.
Man versus himself. I guess maybe that's it.
Well,
but how great would it have been?
Tonally, that was so weird because it's like, I guess, trying to cater to the older now Power Rangers fans from the 90s, and then it's still kind of kidified, but it's the first time you're dealing with the real death of a main character. The actual actress died, so they're addressing it like over a decade later in Power Rangers media. So it was kind of strange.
Kind of weird.
Like the overacting where we get to tell her Rita Repulsa killed her mom, and it's just really strange.
Oh, Mike, even the latest Jurassic Park film, it had all the original cast back.
Yeah.
And what do they do with those guys? They turn them into buffoons, and then they're not even stopping dinosaurs. They're stopping a locust invasion. I didn't know that Jurassic Park would be about locusts. In your dinosaur movie.
Yeah. The worst thing about the new Star Wars was when Carrie Fisher was alive and you had Luke, Han, and Leia in the movie, and then they never had a scene on screen altogether. Like, how do you not have that? Like,
I will say they kind of got Han Solo. I mean, it was weird that he had gone back to smuggling after helping the rebellion. You
and
think he would
still has the same outfit. Like,
same outfit, but at least I guess a positive would be, well, okay, it's kind of the old Han Solo we know. That's as much of a positive as I can give it. But in the nature of the story, you would have thought he would have kept that roguishness, but then evolved.
Yeah. He's the Lawrence Hollie of the group. Where he's in his van still, like the Millennium Falcon.
They had to do it where, see, that the way they did Han Solo in The Force Awakens is how they should have done Indiana Jones and Dial of Destiny.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that's the character you have being his old self.
Yeah.
You know, the way you open up the film, instead of it, the way they opened it up, friggin' 30 minutes of CGI young Indiana Jones, and it cuts to the present day where it's 80-year-old Indiana Jones wearing a beaten-up T-shirt in his apartment in New York telling hippies to quiet down.
Oh, really? Oh, so he's the old man that's...
Yeah, he's the old man. He's get off my lawn. Now,
yeah.
How great would it have been? You don't start with young CGI Indiana Jones. You start with a mysterious desert.
Mm-hmm.
You know, all these people. I think he's over that hill over there. Yeah, you know, all these people hushing, and like people in jeeps pulling up, helicopters pulling up, the swell of the music. You know, you know what I mean? And it's all dramatic. Like, wait, is he over there?
Mm-hmm.
And you see all these people sweeping at an excavation site. They're using their little brushes and combing through rocks, and then standing up, silhouetted. There's the hat. There's the jacket. There he is. That's him. We've been looking all over for him. We haven't seen him since the Crystal Skull. You know,
he was old back then.
Dr. Jones, you know, it's the FBI. Dr. Jones, we understand you have knowledge of UFO activity. I've seen a lot of things. Right now, we're looking for the something diamond encrusted dick wiper of.
This is like when people ask me about Experimentally ILL now. Like,
I'm looking for the diamond encrusted dick wiper of Ramses the Great. I'm not going out. This is the event. Well, sir, we have the ultimate, and then they present him with, the great doomsday machine of Atlantis. Sir, there's seismic activity under the ocean. We think Atlantis is coming back, and it might have a doomsday device on it. Oh, they're talking about a red.
Is this the real movie? I haven't seen it. I just know Lawrence Hollie's version of the movie. He did a radio play.
What is this Vinnie Tomato?
Yeah.
And now, see, right then, you're right back to it. Right into it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then maybe Waller-Bridge is there as an FBI agent. And she's like, Dr. Jones, I've heard so much about you. I've been trying to follow in your footsteps. Listen, I have only one me. And you can't replicate the things I've done. Well, let me tell you, if you want to follow along, hold on to your khaki pants. You look like Ichabod. You look like what would happen if Ichabod, Crane, Big Bird, and Olive Oil had a night in the desert together.
If only we had D.L. Polonsky to make a description of somebody's physical traits. It looks like a bag of laundry with a beach ball on top.
Believe me, she's in the actual film, like looking at guys' butts and like running away from like a guy that she divorced, and like he's this Middle Eastern dude, like he's like a real rich Middle Eastern dude that can't get over her.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's okay to exploit men when it's women doing it, because that's feminism, like equality now.
Yeah, she's got kind of an awkward cute to her, but it's the attitude with her. It's the attitude.
It's the looks, the attitude, the remarks. So to tie it all together, Lawrence, like
he gets to the end of it. He gets to the end of the movie, and he's like he wants to just die.
Oh no!
which is how I feel about pop culture at this point.
I just wanted to
and that brings it right over to Comic-Cons. Like, I don't care. Regarding pop culture, I could, that's why if I'm going to that shit, it's all about Goth Robot. It's all about me, man.
Well, that's why I wanted to make.
You guys like it's all about you guys making your own show.
Yeah.
Make it about you.
Yeah.
What I always
You're
tell
the
you
hero
about
of your own story.
That's what I always tell you about your fanboying with Kevin Smith. Like, don't be a fan.
Well,
be a peer.
I think we reached that point, and it's also like, and that's what even Kevin was like trying to encourage, like, why aren't you doing this shit? It's so fun. Like, you like watching this, like, try making it, and it's certainly more work than just passively watching shit, but there's more of a payoff, to it, so, and yeah, you know what I mean? And I think that's part of the reason with a positive spin on it is like, it was like we were the show, and like we were managing those guys on the crew was sort of enough activity for me that to try to be like, oh, we really need to see this like Star Wars panel or something wasn't really on my radar at the time, but so that part of it, like being able to tell a story about us, trying to tell a story, I think that's kind of interesting too, so yeah.
Well, Mike, it's about you guys, it's about we have a storied legacy.
Mm-hmm.
I am delirious with hunger.
Yeah, we're gonna wrap it up.
And so what you gotta do to wrap it up though, Mike,
yeah,
you've got to say.
Well, I wanted to just ask.
If you don't, I'll have an OCD fit.
Well, what do you think is the themes? I think it's still like good versus evil. Evil is punished, but there's something about putting on a mask, having that alter ego, that dual identity thing. And then I think with the sci-fi, like Hartley Pleshot talked about, that boldly going to the stars and the fantasy of getting along with alien races and things when we can barely get along with each other here. But those things keep coming back. Like, people want, I guess, escapism or...
It goes back to the earliest of our stories, Mike, the Bible, where angels are coming down. It's us wanting to have relevance in the universe and to not feel so small in the face of things we can't understand.
Well, I also...
Give us agency in the face of things we can't understand.
I also think with, like, heroics and superheroes, when you think of, like, Batman or whoever, it's like this height of human potential, and it's also like you want to be that character because, like, he always knows what to do or always has the right tool, like, in the face of adversity, right? Whereas, like, in real life, like, we wish we had that, but we don't always have it, right? So...
And it's the dream and fantasy that our own adventures could go on for unlimited issues.
Yeah, yeah.
Because Batman, Spiderman, these characters are rewritten and repurposed, and they go on, and they never seem to age, and there's a new one for every generation, and then, when you get into it, you dig deep, and you find out about the other ones from past times, and you realize these storied-rich legacies, and we like to associate with them, because wouldn't it be cool if we could just go on?
It's the modern mythology. And with Batman, it's like that. I think it was Denny O'Neil who mentions, like, the writer, like, it was having your mythic cake and eating it too, because, like, Batman has this, like, kind of demonic, like, look to him, but he's a good guy too, so you can kind of, like, play both sides a little bit. He's like a vigilante, but he's for good, so...
The thing in Alfred in the movie Batman and Robin, 1997, I think Alfred summed up the reason for the season for Batman and why I think a lot of people want to be superheroes. I think Alfred said something along the lines of, remember Bruce was talking, Alfred is sick in Batman and Robin, and then Bruce goes, Bruce, for what is Batman but a man's attempt to cheat death?
Mm-hmm.
And that's all it's ever been. I mean, Batman was born out of seeing his family murdered, and then his whole mission statement was to prevent that from ever happening again.
Mm-hmm.
And he poured all his resources into making sure that senseless killing and mayhem isn't the order of the day.
Mm-hmm.
And isn't that any superhero? Isn't that any, I mean, you know, Ninja Turtles? You know, let's protect the city from being subjugated by the Shredder.
Yeah.
Or the Power Rangers. You
and
know,
people who would otherwise be like kind of like marginalized, or that idea of like they can't really take the full credit because they can't reveal their identity, so it's sort of like a selfless act, or supposed to be.
When you put on that experimentally ill suit and start swinging your webs around, you do some good. You know what to do.
Well, I like recording stuff because I like to, well, make the document. And sharing things is fun, but I think also like when you record something and there's a beginning and there's an end to it, I think that can help me too, because then especially when you have to like talk to other people you don't know, it sort of helps because it takes, if you're introverted, it takes like extra energy to kind of wind up to do this stuff. So if there's like a beginning and an end, there's an expectation like, well, at the end we wind down and we can go back to watching a movie or reading a book or something on our own, and it sort of ends, right? But like if you're at some big party and there's not even a record of it, like that can be like overwhelming, and you're like, it takes a lot of focus and energy to like have a conversation, so you're just like, well, like why am I doing this? And so when you record stuff, it's not just, I mean, it's still a genuine interaction, but I think it's like the idea, well, if this is recorded for all time, like why not try to put your best foot forward kind of thing, or try to, I don't know, it just sort of incentivizes it like a little bit more, whereas maybe it just wouldn't, sometimes I just don't have the energy like otherwise. And you have to just like the stuff you're talking about or recording, and you have to like the media thing. And maybe just because we grew up in a time when there was a lot of, maybe this pop culture stuff really hooked us into the media stuff, but it's just like you have to like love it, you know. If you're not, like, it's like what DL was kind of saying, people wonder, it's like the imperative to create something. Like, I think none of us wanted to have children or thought it was conducive to have children, so we wanted to like generate something creative, you know, to create something. But I think it's like other people, it's like a quick fix, it's like a shiny item, and so they show up for a little while, but they're not really in it for the long run. If there's not like an immediate payoff to it, you know, sometimes you're playing the long game with it. So those like people don't understand it. Like there's so many people on Facebook or whatever who will post like, give me a recommendation for a podcast, or then they'll say, I'd like to do a podcast about this and this, but if I did it, tell me who would listen to it. And the thing is like you can't really know until you just start making the stuff, you know, and then maybe you could refine it later on, you know. But it's like people want the immediacy, and sometimes there isn't that. So you have to enjoy the process.
They want the endorphin kick. Yeah. They want the endorphin kick of hanging out with everyone and being part of a creative process. Yeah. But when it comes down to actually leaving the house or leaving the apartment, it's a massive... That's the reality to it.
Yeah.
Will I fail? Will I not get there? Will I get lost? You know, they succumb to things such as mundane as the weather.
Yeah.
Oh, it's too cold out. It's too hot out. And it's just like...
They want to be comfortable. Yeah.
And, you know, but then they'll see something you do and see how great it is or how much fun it looks, and you'll be like, yeah.
Yeah.
But the building blocks to that are doing it.
Yeah, and so you have to like rally people, and yeah, I think even just the short videos you've been doing for the Experimentally ILL TV show now has taught me. I always think like, wow, like no one would believe like how much work that was, like that we had to like set up the green screen and it took us like an hour to, you know, and even had to deal with producer things like where it's like, you know, DL missed his cab, so he needs me to buy him an Uber, and then he'll reimburse me the Uber, and then, you know, Hartley is delayed on the train, and, you know, and then the studio's closing an hour earlier than we thought, and things like that, you know. It's just so and I like it because it's like it's hard, but it's like it's sort of whatever. I think DL said a similar thing. I mean, his thing was always like, he'd go about himself, he'd be like, well, I can't play football, so I start the next picture. It's like, I think super intelligent, creative people, it's like, this is a way to, well, DL is always trying to like demystify the arts and say it's not always an intellectual pursuit, it's just like doing the thing. But I think like, sharp people who have some idea but are maybe not necessarily like as physically inclined. I mean, this is like our way to communicate an idea with the world, and there is a reaction in some way to it, even if it's just the idea doing it. I mean, so many people are just like, oh, your podcast, and I don't know if they actually listen to the podcast, but I don't know. All that stuff is fun too, but it's like a secondary thing. But I do think we should like talk about some of the things we did, and there's nothing wrong to being proud of that stuff. And also, I just think being realistic about the independent audience is like not everybody knows, so it's like part of the story to tell it, and it's just like storytelling, So
yeah, I agree.
Mm-hmm.
I've always told you, I've always meant, I've always impressed that upon you that.
Mm-hmm.
Our collective legacy is nothing to be ashamed of. It's nothing to be embarrassed by. It's like everything had to start somewhere.
Yeah, and it's like people who get to a bigger level, they have like the luxury of maybe other people will make the Affirma like documentaries, whatever, and we have to help each other to do it. And I just think it's like a lot of the celebrity thing is like this. It's all like perception, and it's what their public relations team are really good at. And I think a lot of these things, it is sort of like you say, emperor has no clothes. Like they just happen to have people who are really good at like propagating an image of somebody, and like all that stuff is the paparazzi and the whole Hollywood star system. Like back in the day, they realized like, let's put out publicity about these actors, because it's like, yeah, the audience starts to feel like they know them, or feel like they have this, what do they call it, like a parasocial relationship with these people, and so then they'll start showing up to the movies more. I mean, it's like a business decision, really. And so in the internet age, you could do all that stuff yourself. It's just, there's either people on TikTok or younger people who are just really good at generating stuff quickly, and then there's still even people who ain't that old, but it's like they just like the idea of, like one day we're going to have a YouTube channel, or one day we'll do a podcast. And then then I try to keep an open forum like you would, and we would have sort of open studio at the cable station, and people still don't step up to it. So it's just like, do we want to live in fantasy land where everything's perfect, or are we willing to break our nose on an actual shoot?
Do you want to keep getting the endorphin kick of the potential?
Yeah.
Or do you want to go actually get a real... If you're all into the endorphin kick, there's no better one than the one you get when it's mission accomplished.
Yeah, exactly. So... But
so many people love the blue sky, what is it? They like the whole blue sky fantasy.
If it's a fantasy, then it's untouched. Like, it can't be criticized too. And like, even one of my therapists, hey, like that's what fantasy is for. You know what I mean? Like, you don't have to do the work. There's no risk in the fantasy. You can like mitigate risk, and so I think that's like what it is. It's like what if I make it and then no one reacts to it, no one likes it or something. That's like the podcast thing. And that's so silly to me, because like literally all the podcast asks of you is like, sit and talk to your friend about a subject you like. You know what I mean? Like, it's not even saying like, get 5 cameras and shoot a green screen. You know what I mean? And like, a lot of people don't even go for that. So
you mentioned earlier how you're trying to accommodate the creatives. That's what I used to do when I was the studio manager at a couple of public access studios. My mission statement had always been, whenever I would stay late, I would invite people who were interested in video production and say, hey, stay and use the equipment, learn. because I'd have all those same people coming to me during the day being like, oh, I have this idea for a show and I want to do this and that. And then, Mike, it used to be the funniest thing. I'd stay late, and then those motherfuckers would be standing in the door of my office just running their mouths.
Yeah.
I'm like, and these are the same people who were just saying hours earlier. Oh, and this wasn't all of them, by the way, but this was a few of them. They'd be in my office, just, you realize at the end of it, oh, these are just kind of like lonely people. You know, some of them, and so you know what? I would accommodate them. I'd say, okay, go hang out, but understand I have work to do.
Yeah.
You know, like you can go, and then what would happen is the chatty ones would go and help the ones who are actually producing.
Yeah.
And then that's where little friendships were made, and then that's when good stuff would erupt. And then because other people would find out ways to utilize other folks in productive ways.
Yeah, I mean, everybody has different strengths and weaknesses, I think. I think that's also, I mean, you can do therapy and try to, like, for me, I just had to, like, build my confidence, and in therapy start hearing, like, actual positive feedback about the things I could do, or the idea that, like, I wasn't so different than anyone else who's trying to do this kind of thing, so I could just go for it, and kind of, like, reprogramming, you know, when you lived around a lot of, like, negative people who are relatives or people who, like, try to kill your dreams, you know what I mean? It's like, maybe not everybody can, like, make it to the top, but there's no reason to, like, I always, so confusing when, like, an older person would, like, try to just, like, stop my dreams, or talk about, oh, you know how many wannabes are out, you know, whether it's LA or just, like, doing a show, or, I don't know, just, like, belittling things that, like, they don't even see. So I don't know, it's just like, and those things really affected me when it's an older person or even a relative who would say, you know, don't do this or this, like, creative thing was helping me, like, cling on to, like, life itself. Like, why not just encourage, like, what's the alternatives? You know, it's like so many creative people, or just anyone really, like, struggles just to cope with life itself, like turning to drugs or drinking. And if we want to make even just, like, a silly little movie, like, what is so wrong about that? That's why you're kind of teaching me too, like, some of the things that, like, we did earlier on that maybe weren't the most polished things, to, like, that you can, like, find the good in it, and that it's a good experience, and you have to get experience to do something. You know, and that's more than a lot of people accomplish, you know, so.
I agree.
Yeah. So I think, like, putting that in the little, the Michael Phelan O'Toole career retrospective, coming to film festivals near you, really was an interesting endeavor, I feel.
So it kind of made you do an about face about your own legacy.
Well, and go, like, okay, this is fun. Like, oh, this looks cool. I'm proud of this part. And then if it's something that I didn't like as much, like, oh, if I, like, okay, I want to go and, like, do more, so that, you know, the next edit or the next documentary includes other things that I might like. You know what I mean? It's a realization of, like, when is that sort of, like, pivotal moment. I think now it's like the stuff we did at the con and just back at CCTV, and I feel we could at least do that stuff, or trying to do the podcast again, and just, like, that's a version of myself that I really like. I feel like in between sort of, like, the DL's thing about the braggadocio or the hyperbole or self-promotion, and then sort of that very, like, low version of myself of, like, I can't do this, or why do we do that? I think, you know, the real version's, like, in the middle, and doing the conventions and back, like, producing stuff and galvanizing other people where, like, they're literally, like, thanking me. Like, Paul, who we had on our crew, was like, he goes, this is the busiest weekend I've had in years, and it's all thanks to you, Mike, and stuff like that, you know. And it's like, and people start saying that, you know, it makes you feel good. It makes you feel like this isn't just, like, there's other people. That's my thing too, is I was trying to get approval, and, like, that ain't really that great. But it's also like, look at who you're trying to get approval from. Like, that these guys just aren't supportive anyway, because maybe something didn't work out in their own lives or whatever. And the fact, so like when you have a creative mission,
talking about your relatives, right?
yeah, I mean,
Relatives.
when you have a creative mission, look to the people who support you, or as Kevin Smith would say, the why not people, you know, where life is going to go by, like, anyway. And so it's like, hey, why not make a mission? We're going to go film at the Comic-Con. I can get you guys in for free, and we're going to really cover this because we love this. And it's like, I was asking people, and I assume, oh, they're not going to show up. They're like, and they did show up, you know. And like, if I had that much faith at the outset, I might have, you know, planned the shoot a little bit more. But I was just like, sliding in there by the skin of my teeth. And they did show, and they dug it, and like, oh, let's keep doing this. Let's take this on the road, and you know. And so it's just like, maybe there's other people like that. That's my next plan, is to post on sort of do like open calls to find like new people too, because you want to inspire people who are maybe like struggling with mental health or whatever it is that's stopping them. But I think at a certain point too, it's like, let's reach out to people who are also like willing to take this a little bit more seriously too, because it's just like, that's my experience, is like, it's like a shiny new toy for a while to some people, and then they like fizzle out. Or yeah, I just think everyone has their different motivations, I guess. But in terms of the Comic-Con, it was fun, and like you say, if we're gonna go there and hit it, let's do it for our own content too, you know, so that way everybody wins.
That's absolutely right.
Yeah. So I think this was a good show.
I think that's a good summation, Mike.
That's good. Fan Expo Boston 2023. Stay tuned for the Experimentally ILL television coverage. Very special episode, or by the amount of B-roll, I think some people recorded several episodes. Like, we'll have to par it down. We'll have our work cut out for us. No pun intended. But yeah, no, I enjoyed, you know, Fan Expo. Every convention there's a lot of activity, a lot of chaos, a lot of things to manage. So always good and bad things, but more good, you know. That stuff is so cool to me, the comics and movies and stuff, and definitely the fanatic side of it. And I think a lot of the autograph prices and the steep prices, it's because of like the collector's market, because there are people who turn around and get stuff signed and sell it on eBay or something, and maybe the people who are signing it weren't seeing a cut of the money, but no one forces you to do that stuff. That's what's cool about Comic-Con, is you can plan your day and do what you want to do. There were even some little film festivals going on there too, and a lot of times some of the smaller local things aren't promoted as much on the website as the Hollywood celebrities and stuff, but that stuff's still there, you know, local artists and even filmmakers and things. You just gotta look. So I guess part of my goal with the Experimentally ILL stuff is we shall spotlight the little guy, the indie artiste. So keep trying to do that. Thank you to the Fan Expo, and thank you to CCTV, and to my guests Lawrence Hollie and D.O. Polonsky. For those weird local artists, I am your weird local artist, Michael Phelan O'Toole. This is Experimentally ILL, 112, August 10th, 11th, 2023. What the heck year is this? Find us on experimentallyIll.com, and stay tuned to Spotify, Apple Podcasts. Is it still called Anchor now? I think they might have changed the name, but this is the audio side. This is the podcast where I talk to my friends and we do interviews with cool countercultural and pop cultural artistes and long form conversations, and this will continue parallel with the Experimentally ILL television series. If anyone's local and would like to join us at CCTV, you can find me on Facebook, facebook.com/Mike O'Toole, or the Experimentally ILL Facebook, or on Twitter, Mike O'Toole, or no, it's called X, I guess. And connect with us and help us make some surreal video sketches and stuff. So should I say the catchphrase, Lawrence? If only we had Danny Trejo to say that. To sign off. Where there's an ill, there's a way. So be part of the experiment right here on Experimentally Ill.
I think he's lost his mind. He's never been like this before. Tonight he was almost raving.
What did you say?
Oh, crazy things. That he's some kind of a spaceman and that they're taking over the Earth and that we're all going to die.
Don't listen to them. They told me to keep in mind the scientific and